And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
Live.
8:05 live, 5:05 Pacific time. Good morning, everybody. I see we already got some listeners on already. Friends to the podcast. Thank you so much. Good morning, Hassan, Matthew O'Brien, Chris Arnold. It's Monday. John, what are you doing this weekend, man? What'd you do this weekend? Besides, of course, putting out videos, we're gonna have to start a calendar for the Finest Unfiltered. John's got his tank top doing some curls for the girls, some bench pressing, some words of wisdom. What'd you do this weekend?
Besides laugh my ass off about how pathetic this administration is and how there's so much take away John Shell's phone, talk some sense into him. John, we're your only friends, bro. So I just want to let you know. Everybody else is I need a death. I put out a video of the danger of yes men. I highly suggest you listen to it. I'm serious, man. I'm like completely embarrassed this weekend. We got some more trolls following us this weekend. Like 0 user accounts only set up to attack us. It's hysterical. It's like, all right, dude, whatever. You want to say I'm a 0? That's fine. I'm a 0. Eric's dumb. Whatever you want to say about any of us is fine. But just debunk what we're saying as false or not right. You know, like I got no problem. Like, you want to talk shit? We could talk shit all day. But they always do it from behind the blanket of anonymity, like, because they don't really come out because they're not real people. And that's my biggest thing. I never care about the opposition, but I just find it truly pathetic when you have to hide your name and your face and like come up with this slant nonsense. Because I guarantee I have more arrests than whoever's behind that talking shit. I guarantee it. You know,
I don't think it personal, but I think it's hysterical. I couldn't stop laughing. So for our listeners on right now, if you have a chance, if you're looking at social media, so John Shell, he's smart enough to not put our names out there because he's worried about legal ramifications. But he's actually came up with hashtags for myself and John. So if you see one of them that says BMS, Building Maintenance Section, and one says EDW, I almost cried. You know, I'm a grown man. I couldn't take it. EDW means Eric Dimwit, by the way, which is hysterical. John Shell, I just want to let you know we decoded your hashtags. It didn't take too long. It took us about 0.4 seconds because Copwatch calls me Eric Dimwit. So you didn't even come up with something original. You had to get it from somebody else. But hysterical. A grown man. Well, obviously he's not a grown man. He's supposed to be a grown man. He's like a total child. But I wouldn't throw stones from a glass house if I was John Shell. I mean, I was even reading yesterday, just combing through some articles about John Shell's accidental discharge, where he took the life of someone else in 2008 when he was doing his job as a lieutenant. And it was interesting reading the article. And forget about even the title. But in the article, there was a detective there. And this article was 2022, so years later. And according to this detective, the case still doesn't sit right with him. Apparently, the way the shots were fired doesn't match up. It doesn't coincide with his story. He doesn't believe it was accidental. And he believes that John Shell was never held accountable for that shooting. So I wouldn't throw stones if I lived in a glass house, especially if you're John Shell. So listen, let's get into it. Good morning, everybody. We got some great stuff for you. We're going to analyze some stuff here. Belmar, New Jersey cops lock up surfer for not having a beach badge. Curious for you to weigh in with your thoughts. You know, John and I both have been talking about this. We have different perspectives of this actual incident, and incidents just like that. You know, quite often we get the view right now with video. So, John, let's do it, brother.
Yeah, let's wait for Paul. I think we're gonna have Just Right PD come on here, Paul Manicone. So we're just waiting for him to get in. I just resent him the link. So Paul, if you're watching this, jump on. Give him a few minutes. But yeah, so Hassan actually had a question. He wants to know how many collars did we have before promotions. I was a cop about 7.5 years, I believe, and could be wrong, maybe 8. I was a cop 8 years, and I affected 145 arrests. The overwhelming majority, except for like my first 6 or 7, they were all pickup arrests. None of them ever stemmed from 911 after that. One or two, but they were after investigation. So I ended 145. That's more than John Shell, by the way.
I thought I did pretty well. I had close to 100, but I got promoted with 5 years on the job. I got
all the time.
Yeah, and at the time I was still in the reserve, so I was constantly doing stuff with the military. I was there. I got promoted. I'm sorry. I passed the test with 3 years on. And the same thing. I was looking to do mostly pickup arrest. It was a great experience though. I think that like I said, again, if they're going to make fun of things, they should actually analyze themselves. But again, it's interesting where this stuff is coming from. They just act like total children. I guess there's a lot of people on here listening. Listen, we're not knocking people. I just want people to understand that we're saying that you have to only make arrests. That's not what we're saying. You should be a multifaceted cop. You should be making arrests. You should be doing other things. You should. And I always looked, especially doing special operations, exactly what you just said. I looked for people that were making pickup arrests because, you know what, depending on certain things. I mean, there's guys, they work in units where they're summoned to a shoplifting call every day, and they might have hundreds of arrests. But, is that something that we can look at someone as a potential investigator, that they have that, they think outside the box and we have that thinking mind? No, I like people that make pickup arrests. That was my ideology. I want to make pickup arrests. So make an observation, self-initiated, something based on people versus the board, to a stop, question, frisk that may lead to a firearm or maybe lead to a robbery. So, that's I think that's good police work, especially pickup arrest.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, dude, because, I'll never forget when I made Sergeant, and he's probably listening to this right now. I'm not going to say who it is, but but he approached me in the locker room, and he was like, he was old. He had more time in rank than me. And he's like, "Oh, I see that you're part of the 100 Club." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Oh, you part of the 100 Club, guys that affected over 100 arrests." I was like, "You running me before?" And I never cared that anybody ran. I truly don't care. Like, if someone ran my tax number. The thing that upset me about when we retired, that what they ran me about, is they ran personal confidential information on me, like my address and things of that nature. That's the thing. I'm like, why is any active cop running where I live and then trying to find out where I work? And again, why they do that, because when they run smear campaigns like this, they want to call my boss and tell him I'm a racist. Unfortunately, my boss is notified because it's me. So we're going to keep him employed. So, so like that was the thing that bothered me. But I was like, I agree with you totally, because I know people who really, they got promoted with 5 years on, and in their 4th year, right before they got promoted, they just took like 100 arrests that year. But they were, like you said, they were shoplifters. Yeah. They really didn't have the backup knowledge of pickup arrests. Mickey says, "Can we talk about our best arrests?" We'll definitely do that one episode. I don't think we're going to do it today because we got Paul Manacone on here. He's waiting to come in, and we're gonna go to the surfer. We're gonna go on to John Shell's tweets. We're gonna go on a few other things that happened over the weekend. So we're gonna get into that stuff. But we could definitely do that like throughout the course. Maybe tomorrow or something. We'll bring it in. They're long-winded stories. I mean, I got a ton of funny stories. So does Eric. I mean, they're great. I love doing stuff like that. So. But I just don't want to clog up the whole show.
That's interesting, Mickey Murphy. Definitely, I want to get into that. If you could actually just even go further into it, because I always thought it's so subjective on like what's your best arrest. It's like, is it someone that we put in jail that really has an impact on the community? Is it something that was funny? Is it something that where you actually like to certain arrests that sometimes you get to meet the family of someone that was a victim? I mean, that happened to me numerous times. Arresting people that were perpetrators for killing someone else, and you meet the family involved with the victims, and sometimes like that's a great arrest because it's memorable. So let's jump right into it. Is Paul ready?
Paul Manacone is ready, my fellas. All right, so let's bring him up to the stage, guys. If you don't follow Paul Manacone, he's at Just Right PD on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram. Definitely check him out. He's a retired NYPD lieutenant. He's been out a while now, so he comes from a different school of thought than me and Eric. But we're all about the same. Paul's a hardcore conservative, makes a lot of videos showing the hypocrisy that's coming out of the progressive Democratic Party. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Paul Manacone. Paul, thank you for joining us, brother. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
You made it. We hear you loud and clear, bro.
Yeah. Sorry about that, bro. I was having camera issues. Thanks for that introduction.
That's my job to have
beautiful
issues.
Camera, bro.
That's my
camera.
That's my job to have technological issues. Yeah, and your lighting is perfect. I know. We were going over this yesterday. Make sure everybody's lighting is good. Anyway, Good morning. You look great, brother. What's going on?
Thank you guys for having me. John, I heard you say you had 145 arrests. Eric, I didn't hear what you said because I was messing with the equipment.
Oh, I said close to 100. I think I had about 60.
Yeah, so I don't have that much either. I remember we didn't really count misdemeanors. So as far as felony goes, I think I stopped at about 50. But I got promoted young early. I came on in 92 and I was promoted in 98. So 6 years in. And then you don't count the ones, obviously, Eric, if you counted the ones when you were in PSA 4 or when you were the SOL, you'd have close to 1,000, right? Every arrest that you show up on.
No, I'm not even counting the ones that.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. But I wasn't a column monster.
No, I'm talking about the ones that actually put arresting officer. No. Yeah. I mean,
me too.
Thousands. I would actually. There were times I went out literally by myself and have grabbed guns by myself, stupidly.
It's you look back on the things you did when you retired and think like, how am I still here?
Hey, nice compliment, AJ Felice. Paul has been a great guest on your show. Can't wait for today's show. Great content as always. Hey, thank you so much for being a friend to the podcast. We got some great listeners. We got some great active and retired people with some great knowledge that add to the podcast. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Who was Felice, right? Thank you.
AJ Felice. Yeah, AJ Felice. But yeah, I mean, we were just talking about that. Like, does because the amount of arrest make you a great cop or no? And I truly don't think so, because, and no one ever really has the amount of arrests. I think like we had Edwin Raymond on. I think I had a little debate with Edwin Raymond. I don't remember if it was on the show or if it was on a different one, but and he was like, oh, you're always harping on arrest numbers and it doesn't matter. And I was like, I agree with you. It doesn't matter to a point. If like you're a cop and you didn't affect over 10 arrests like Eric Adams, that to me shows your work ethic. That to me shows that like you never wanted to be a cop. Like, you know what I mean? You have 5 years on the job and you got promoted and you have 50 collars. You made 10 arrests that year, but you were probably involved in 2 or 3 arrest incidents every night. Every night that you out on the street, if not more. Then when you make supervisor, that doubles. I would. There were nights I was running a condition team and an anti-crime team. We were bringing 7-8 bodies a night, not in one shot. You know what I mean? So like, the numbers are phenomenal when you add them up in your career as to how many you were involved in. So putting your name on a piece of paper, I don't think makes you a great cop or not. But like, did you partake? What do the guys you work with say about you? What did the guys you supervise say about you? I think that outweighs anything other than like just straight numbers on the board. And I think people lose sight of that a lot, especially when we talk about Kaz's 300 that were driven back to the command for him. That's like, it's like, dude, you had people, you were like, this is a good call. I'm going to take it, drop it back off to the command for me. Like that's not an arrest. You didn't.
John, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Your name on it. I think what matters when it comes into play, not only because it proves that you're doing your job, but as you go up in rank and let's say you become a CO, I don't think you have the right to ask cops to go out and collar and bring them in and ask them why aren't they collaring and where's their activity. Meanwhile, you were a do nothing. You don't have the right now to go out and ask people to do what you were afraid to do. And so I think as you ascend in rank, you need to at least practice what you preach. You can't ask others to do what you haven't done.
I always found that for me, I'm glad that you said that. As I was saying, John, I agree that the most important evaluation that I felt was necessary for me was my peer evaluations. I always thought it was so important for me of what my peers felt about me. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but when I was in the Marine Corps, I went on a graduate at OCS, Officer Candidate School, which is another boot camp to be an officer. But there was another award. So I actually won both awards. It was called the Gung Ho Award. You're most motivated, dedicated, and that was actually an award that was nominated by your peers. So to me, that was like the most important one because my peers, they gave me the award. So it was like that to me, not even just for my leadership, it was like the people that I was with, they supported me. I was like, that was the most important award that I remember even in my lifetime.
Right. What others think of you means a lot.
Wait, we got our favorite friend on here, Juju 10452. He is a Kaz Daughtry, John Shell sycophant. He says, John and Eric are so shameless with their biases. They only invite individuals whose worldviews align with their own. Shame is literally free. I don't know if you know, but we invited your bosses, John Shell. Oh, actually, it might be you. We invited John Shell and Kaz Daughtry on here. They refused to come. We invited the liberal Pat Lynch to come on here. He didn't come on. We invite his liberal sycophant Pat Hendry to come on. He hasn't came on. We've invited literally everyone. We've had Edwin Raymond on here. We had Cop Watch on here. And I don't think you're going to sit here and say that all world view aligns with Cop Watch. So, Juju, thank you. We appreciate the listen as always. We feel very blessed you're here, and we look forward to interacting more.
We got to come up with a hashtag for Juju, because just like we got BMS, we got what is it, EDW? We know. Listen, if it doesn't work out, John and I figured out. Like, listen, if Internal Affairs or Department of Justice, if they start to decode these hashtags, EDW means Eric Dimwit. I'm sure they'll say it meant, erectile dysfunction withdrawal or something. They'll come up with something else. Hey, good morning, Ron. M. Franco, a lot of great listeners, great friends of the podcast. Let's jump right into it, John. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. I'm curious to get your perspective, Paul. And is it going to be similar to John and I's perspective, or different, since we worked in different eras within the police department in New York City comparing to the times now? This is going to be interesting.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
Let me bring that up. Hold on. I'm a little discombobulated again this morning. Here we go. All right.
Monday morning.
It's Monday morning, baby. Thank God it's Monday. All right. So this video comes out of Belmar, New Jersey, and you're going to see an interaction with the surfer and Belmar cops. We'll get into all this. I traditionally have had so many issues as a kid growing up with shore cops. I mean, Eric spoke about it. So did he. I think anybody that has went down the shore, went to DJ, did any of that, is going to just have a bias. I'm going to sit here right now and say that I'm biased towards shore cops. I'm not going to put that bias on to everybody there, but it definitely weighs in when I see the video. So what happens here is the surfer is being asked for his beach badge and his ID. He's clearly in a wetsuit and a surfboard by a higher ranking Jersey Belmar cop. The shore cops, they have temporary cops that come in there too. So you'll see younger kids with them too. There's one version of the story floating around, and that version is that the cop just walked up to him and asked him for ID, and he backs off. And it leads to this whole interaction. And again, none of us on here are going to support you being an asshole to a cop or walking away from a cop when you're being instructed on. And the other version of the story is that this kid was asked numerous times throughout the days, him and his friends, to provide a beach badge, and they keep walking past the civilians. So that day, the police department sent cops there to check the beach badges, and when they asked, he just walked off. So those are the versions of it. We don't know which one. We're going to talk all of them around because obviously we weren't there, but we're going to play the body camera video, and then I guess we'll each go around. Eric will start with your thoughts, and then Paul will get your thoughts, and we'll go around and we'll talk either way, however it happened, both ways, what our thoughts on it, and then give an overall analysis of it. So here we go. Here's the video.
I'm not going to ask you single more times. You're not free to leave.
Am I being detained?
You are. And you take another step, you'll be arrested. I promise you. I promise you.
Because I'm surfing?
Yeah. Just come here.
No. You can talk to Harry Hartson about this.
Talk to whoever you want about it. You're talking to me right
I'm
now.
not doing anything wrong. I'm in the ocean.
Okay. What are the beach badge, though? So we need your information.
Because I'm not on the beach. You're allowed to access the water to surf or to fish.
You are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you don't need a beach badge for that.
You need a beach badge to get onto this beach.
Not
This is a free beach. I'm not going to argue with you. You'll provide your name and information.
No.
After this transaction is done, I'll email you the free access law, and I'll also email you Title 40, which regulates the municipalities to charge for the beach. Okay?
Great.
Now, for the time being, we need your information. No? Okay. 726 to 52. You're not free to go.
All right. Good following.
So good, man.
Yeah, what up your arrest for obstruction? 19.
Sir,
Drop
sir, do not
Drop the surfboard. Drop the surfboard. Drop the surfboard.
You're illegally
Drop the
arresting me.
surfboard.
You're
Drop
illegally
the surfboard.
arresting me. Whoa, hey,
Hands behind your back.
Why are you arresting him?
It's gonna be another charge. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands.
Stop! Don't
Put your hands.
Go away!
Put your hands behind your back.
no,
Put your
sir.
hands behind your back.
What did I do wrong? What did I do
This is
wrong?
ridiculous.
What did I do wrong?
This is
Fighting with
ridiculous.
police.
What
Put
did
your
I
hands
do
behind
wrong,
your
bro?
back. Put your hands behind your back.
What did I do wrong, bro? That's my fucking badge. I walked up to the shower,
Why are
dude.
you arresting him?
Bro,
Shut up! Get the fuck out of my face, dude!
Put your hand behind your back.
No! Why are you guys arresting him? His badge is right
contact
here.
Harry Hartson?
I will call Harry
Can you
Hartson. What the
contact
fuck
Harry
is this?
Hartson,
I'm gonna
please?
call him.
Dude, I didn't do. I have my badge right
Dude, his
there.
badge is right here.
19th boardwalk. Still resisting.
Why did he have to give his name?
Sir,
He's not
please let go of me. You're fit.
What do you
You
want?
are literally.
10 more cops
Bro,
and
you are not allowed to do
what?
this.
Dude, this badge is
You
right
are not
here.
allowed to do
Bro,
this.
please
Stop. Okay?
Stop!
Get her back.
Don't fucking touch me.
Put your hand behind your back. Put them on your back. Stop resisting. Put your hand behind your back. You know.
What the fuck? What the fuck is wrong with you guys?
Get on the radio.
He has a
Hey, call Harry Hartson, please. I have a fucking badge.
Why would you fucking choke him? Because he doesn't have a badge.
All right. So obviously this kid's fucking resisting arrest. Eric, what are your thoughts?
Oh my God. First of all, you can go on for days with this case here, right? So it's important to know, people have to understand, there is context missing from this video, right? And what's important to note also, John and I speak about this, Paul knows about this also, as a cop, you don't get to choose what the laws are, right? First of all, I'll just say, just based on this video right here, I'm so glad that I don't live in New York or New Jersey or the Upper East Coast anymore, right? The fact that a beach can't be free anymore is absolutely ridiculous. The beach is public. That should be free. But unfortunately, in New York, New Jersey, because to keep things nice and it's a democratic place, they got, you have to charge for it. It's insane. So the cops don't get to choose what the laws are. So again, we have actual man's law and moral law. And what you learn as a good cop, especially working in New York City, in a metropolis, in areas sometimes of high violence and high volume, and used to dealing with people. So clearly, you can see this is a nice town, and I have my own biases. Right? We all talked about. I went to the Jersey Shore plenty of times, and I've dealt with part-time cops there. I've dealt with overzealous cops, a little high-strung there. You definitely high steroid use within those police departments, clear as day. But I will say this, okay? Again, context is missing, and that sometimes as a cop you have to pick and choose your battles. This guy doesn't have his beach badge. Is it the crime of the century? Absolutely not. Is he being an asshole? Yeah, he's being an asshole. He's being an asshole because he knows it's stupid, and he knows that they're being overzealous, and he's egging them on. At the point when they asked him for the beach badge, I get it. I would have approached differently and said, listen, I don't know what happened, but I would say, listen, there's people complaining here. They had to pay. You don't have your beach badge. You didn't show it. They don't think you paid. So people are getting upset because they had to pay. You didn't have to pay. At that point, say, listen, show me your beach badge. He says, well, you know what? Am I detained? Yeah. Well, we're trying to verify your beach badge. When he started to walk away, he's leaving. Let him leave. Let him leave the beach. He's leaving for the day. Let him know, listen, if you come back here, then you have to show the badge. And if you don't pay, then you're going to be arrested. You've already you've given him a warning and let him know what's going on at the beach. But for them to pursue him and run after him, it's escalating the situation. You're already putting him in a situation, even though he's acting like an asshole, where he now looks like he looks like that he's vulnerable from these overzealous police. And they're acting stupidly in that manner, I would say, by pursuing him. Are they right? And that's why I talk about law. Are they right? Yes, he has to have a badge. Are they allowed to make the arrest? Yes. But am I going to pursue him? It's not going to end well. You're going to end up tussling with him, and no matter what, it's never going to look good on your behalf. And that's why I think that they didn't move smartly. Okay, you leaving? Go ahead, leave, buddy. Have a nice day. Come back, you're going to be arrested. But to actually run up to him, at this point, he's not in compliance. You're going to end up in a tussle. Is it worth to end up in a tussle over a beach badge? No. So those are my thoughts at this point. I'm sure we're going to get more into it. So based up to this point, Paul, and we'll start talking about force and things like that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree. We're probably missing context. We don't know what job this was, if they were called. I would say that in this particular area, I never had a problem with the Jersey Shore cops. We used to go in the 90s. But it does, like you guys were saying, they do have a reputation for some of these issues. I think what the cop did when he said, I have it in my bag, when the guy started saying, I do have one, maybe the cop should have just let him show it. However, because that would have ended the whole thing. You have it? Okay. Why were you acting like a dick? I didn't want to come over to you. I didn't want to run after you. Show me the pass. Don't do this again. I don't know if he was leaving the beach. He was saying that you could access the water from another location. I don't know how you could do that other than being on the beach. But if it's a private beach and people are paying, you don't know if they have multiple calls on this guy or if it's an issue in the area. We talked about before, you have to address the issues, based on your location and your precinct. The stuff that I dealt with in the 2-8 were a lot different than the stuff I dealt with in Central Park. So I don't know if this is an ongoing issue with surfers in this area. But once he said, I'm not giving you the pass, I'm not showing you my badge, and he started walking away, he asked the cop, am I being detained? The cop said yes. You walk away, you're going to be arrested. And the guy just walks away. So at that point, I have no problem with what the cop did. The only issue I would say, we're all older now, right? I don't know how, this cop's history, but I think looking back, if now that hindsight's 2020, I think all of us would say that, all right, the guy is saying he has a pass. Let's see it. He probably didn't have it. And if he did have it, then the guy was just being a total dick. And you're right, Eric, the law, is on the cop side. Should he have done it? I have no problem other than let's verify whether or not you have a beach pass. And then everyone would have been happy. The people that called would have, been able to see that the guy did have a pass. The cops would have been able to let him continue surfing, and they wouldn't have had this fight and this, this resisting arrest issue.
Yeah, I think you both present valid points. Again, I'm very biased. I spend a lot of my summers, even now, down the Jersey Shore, even though I live in Florida. So I got to be honest, I hate the whole beach badge thing, because the same way that I say that when I'm in New York City, I see the easy targets getting picked off with summonses and arrests. Yeah. I see the same thing on the beach, right? I'm sitting there with my wife and my kids, not drinking, not bothering anyone. The cops got to come by, look there. I'm like, what are you looking at, dude? Like, you're looking to see, I don't even drink, but it just annoys me that, like, you're even coming by. Like, I'm not causing a problem. I'm sitting there with my wife and my kids and my sister and my nieces and my nephews. And it's like, what are you even looking at? Like, what are you looking for over here? It annoys me. And then, oh, where's your beach badge? This, that thing. And then I see people who clearly could cause a problem, young kids, probably not from the area, and they completely blatantly disregard them and don't even interact with them. And I'm like, oh yeah, I see what's going on. You're just looking for easy targets. And this kid right here to me is an easy target. Now he's dumb. I'm not going to lie. This kid is an idiot, but he's a Jersey Shore kid. He grew up down there. When I was his age, I already had numerous interactions with the police. So I would have handled that situation with them much better. But unfortunately, I've been handcuffed so many times down the New Jersey Shore that, like, I can't even begin to fathom, like, I always say, like, there's a million data points in every situation. And the majority of people could only read like 2 or 3. And I think when you go down to shore towns and things like that, you're getting cops that can only read 2 or 3 data points. And I agree with Eric, man. If your issue was you don't have a beach badge, get off the beach, then he leaves the beach. Like, why are you pushing him into that scenario where it's like a must arrest situation? And even though that beach is private, you don't have a monopoly on the ocean. So, like, this kid's out there surfing. He could have been 3 miles down. He could have been 4 miles down, and the tide brought him all the way, and now he's going to walk all the way back. So, like, we don't know the context of it at all. But his initial interaction with him, I don't like it all, because it was completely overzealous. It was, where's your ID? Where's your beach badge? Dude, I'm in a wetsuit, bro. Like, I'm in a wetsuit. Do you think I have ID on me or a beach badge? I obviously don't. So he created the whole... He boxed that kid into where this kid's an idiot, and you should have known that this kid doesn't have any proper etiquette on how to deal with the police. He incited the situation, in my opinion. That's my opinion on it. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they were called to that scene and this kid was an idiot to the civilians there. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for that. But even with that, I agree with Eric. I think that it should 100% been handled differently right from the get-go.
Well, I think we got a great comment here. I think it comes from Jose Acosta. And what he's saying is what you and I were saying, Paul, right? Policing is not a one-size-fits-all. You have to tailor it to your work. So for this town, it may be a big deal. And that's unfortunate. That's what, you work in New York City. It's so diverse. You might work in some areas where it's high propensity for violence, and you deal with particular volume. And this wouldn't be a big deal. Maybe in certain areas it would, but that's the beauty about working in New York City is the diversity of dealing with different people and understanding different neighborhoods and how things are, how coincide for a particular area. Jose Costa, I'm on 20 years with Trenton PD. To those Belmar cops, come down here and use that energy wisely. We can use the help doing real police work. Roll call at 06. And that's exactly what he's talking about. That's what we're talking about. Listen, depending where you work, this would not be a big deal. And you learn to take the high road as a cop, even though, yes, this is the law. That's what I'm saying. This is the law. Yes, you have to have a beach badge. These are the rules. But is that how we're going to police that? Every law goes, well, this is the law. This is how we're going to police. I mean, in some places, adultery is still on the books. And we're going to go out and start locking everybody up. They're cheating on their wives and they're cheating on their husbands. But that's my point. Like, okay, buddy, you're supposed to have your beach badge. Listen, dude, honestly, I'd go there with my hands open. This is ridiculous that we even have to come here. But this is what these people are concerned about. I get it. You're in your wetsuit. Next time you come here, if you're going to be on this portion of the beach, try to have like one of those pockets, have the beach badge somewhere. You know that he's going to act like an idiot, right? For our people that are biased here, he's acting like a total Karen, right? A total Karen. I know, we're racist and stuff. Listen, he's acting like a total asshole because he knows it's stupid. And he knows that he can egg these cops on because clearly they started here. They're all high strung. And he knew he could bait them. But if these cops worked in Trenton PD or the New York City Police Department, they would have a different interaction. Like, all right, buddy, you don't have your beach bench, whatever. Go ahead, leave. You know what? I guess have fun on your walk back. Say something like that. The guy's being an asshole. Listen, have fun, walking back 6 miles where you came from, whatever the case is. But to run after him because he doesn't have his beach badge, especially in this climate right now, knowing how your police work is going to be analyzed and based on by optics. I mean, it looks like you're chasing him down because he doesn't have his badge. How is this going to play out in some civil trial? When this guy is suing the police, but you ran after him, you chased him because he doesn't have his badge. So what? Let him leave. And you know what? This is something I think that needs less interaction with the police, and this should be more with the community people on who charges them. Let them, maybe take a picture of him, and next time he comes, now you advised him if he's on this beach and he didn't pay, he'll be arrested for trespassing. But does it need to get to this volume today? Absolutely not.
John, I couldn't read all of the comment, but Rick Ingber had a good comment where I think he said you just can't simply walk away from law enforcement once they tell you that you're detained. There it is. I could barely see it.
Let me read it for you. It says, because of media, democratic policies, I believe this guy really believes he can just walk away from the demands of law enforcement. The law enforcement officer has to not escalate as it doesn't look good.
Yeah, so I agree that, we all know that there's missing context. We don't know if this cop was talking to him for 10 minutes before that, right? And doing all of the things that we say he should have done. Listen, I'm not here to break your balls, blah, 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 and do it a little bit nicer. They only release this portion like they always do because it makes the cops look bad. So we don't know if he had that conversation. The other thing is we're saying that he was surfing. It could have been miles down the road because he was in the water. His identification was with his girl on scene. So it looks like at least that was his rallying point when he was finished surfing. So he was on the beach at some point. He's on the beach right now. And he said he had his ID there and his girl was screaming on his behalf. John, you mentioned easy pickings, right? Certain summonses and certain enforcement that's done to certain people just because it's easy. Adam Carolla was on Bill O'Reilly years ago, and he talked about what he described as the war on checking accounts. He said there was a motorcycle cop in California who would park up on a hill, and he would sit there all day, and he would grab speeding summonses people that would pass that location. But to get to his post, he had to pass people defecating on the sidewalk, junkies with needles in their arms, homeless, addicted crackheads all over the place. But he doesn't go after those people. He goes after the mother who's taking her 3 kids to school and is also late for work. Why? Because she has a checking account and she will pay. The crackhead and the homeless people aren't going to pay. They go after the people that will pay the summonses. Look at building code violations. You got houses in Manhattan, buildings that are leaning one way. Most of them are in the ghetto. They're not going to get their money, right? So they go after people. Like, I had a summons. I had a 3/8 of an inch step, a little bit of a bump on my sidewalk. I had to pay $3,000 to get a new slab poured. Now they have this thing in New York City where you have to get your building signed off by a licensed plumber to say that all of the plumbing is correct. If you don't do it, it's a $5,000 fine. But you ignore the rapists and the murderers and the people that are committing all these crimes, especially all of these illegals that came in. They're let out, but you go after the homeowners because they know that we'll pay. So it is easy pickings, and it does drive me crazy, and it's unfair.
Yeah, and I think, and again, like, that's just my whole thing. Like, my thing is this: I'm not, if I'm walking in that scenario, I'm not even asking this kid for ID. I already know he doesn't have ID or a beach badge on him. He's in a wetsuit. I already know he doesn't. I don't even need to get to that step. Where's your ID? Where's any of that stuff? I just don't. You know, I told you the guys a story when I was a kid. I was 17 years old. I met these 2 girls down the Jersey Shore. I'm sitting there, I'm drinking a beer. Shore cop comes up and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, officer." We were like in a hidden part. It was in Lavalette. It was right past Seaside. It was right past the main boardwalk, and it was on the concrete boardwalk. And sitting there drinking a beer, and I have the beer under the bench, and I'm sitting on top of the bench, and so are the 2 girls are sitting on top of the bench. And he rolls up and he goes, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I was just drinking a beer. I hope, we weren't trying to make noise. I didn't think we were bothering anyone." And now at this time, I had already been arrested. I had already had numerous interactions with the police. So I wasn't overzealous. I wasn't an idiot to him. I wasn't acting like a tough guy. I act completely compliant and subservient to him. I was like, "I'm very sorry, officer." He said to me, "Do you have ID on you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll give it to you. You want my ID?" He said, "Yeah." So I stood up off the bench and I took my ID out of my pocket and I went to hand him the ID. I came with the ID. So it was clear as day. I didn't do it fast. I'm not looking to get shot. I could already tell the kid was like terrified that he was stopping me. So I do it very slow. I'm like, "My ID's here." I give it to him. I give him my ID. He steps back. He says something over the radio, starts screaming in the radio. And I'm like, "What the hell is going on?" So I instantly just sit back down on the bench with my ID like this, and I just sit there. He goes right for his gun. He's yelling at me, "Don't you fucking move." The girls are yelling at him. I'm like, I was like, "You asked me for ID. I'm giving you my ID. I'm complying with you." I said, "I didn't say anything to you. I'm not a threat to you. I don't know what's going on." And instantly cops run from every end. They literally, this juice bag comes up. He's like a big bald guy. He's wearing like an extra small shirt. He comes up. He grabs me off the bench while I'm sitting there with my ID in my hand, and he body slams me onto the pavement. To which, at that point, they told me I was resisting arrest. I went to cover so my face didn't get smashed into the thing, and my face, I hit hard. My face was swollen, and they brought me into jail. And eventually, because my friend's parents were there down the shore, thank goodness, they went to the police station and were yelling and screaming because the girls said what happened. And the girls actually came, and I didn't even know them. Like, our girls actually came to the police station, and they cut me out with a disorderly conduct and a drinking summons. And like, so that's my impression of the shore cops. Like, and I have about 50 other stories just like that. But like that situation right there, this kid's surfing. Does this provide public safety to the town of Belmar? And is this what the residents of Belmar expect to happen when someone's not having a beach badge? What do you think about that, Eric? Does it provide public safety? And do you think that this is what the residents of Belmar want as far as enforcement level when it comes to beach badges?
I agree with James LaFranco. Easy pickings, which is what you said. No confrontations. That's exactly what I was just about to get into. When you're addressing low-level violations, something like this, and I agree with you, Paul, we're attacking middle class, we're attacking check accounts, right? Because we're bypassing all these actual problematic issues to a community. So I agree. when you're addressing something that's a low-level violation, something that may be quality of life, or something that's a concern for the community, maybe this is an issue brought up by the community. We don't know, right? Context is missing. You have to ask yourself as the cop, you have to think outside the box. My encounter, my street legal encounter with this particular adversary, what impact is it going to make for the community? What impact is it going to make on public safety? Getting into a position where I may end up into a tussle to make an arrest, how much support will I get from my local police department, the media, the public right now for pursuing someone? Because what is the impact on public safety? And for this case, it's absolutely none. There was absolutely no impact on public safety because he didn't pay his badge. He didn't pay to be on the beach. That's something that should be taken on by the ordinance of the town, that should be taken on by the people of the town who enforce this. We do not need the police involved with this. Again, I'll go back to it. Did he act like an asshole? Yes. When a police officer says you're detained, he has to stand there? Yes. But at the same token, I get it. Just because you're a police officer doesn't mean, sometimes we lose that sight. And I believe that's what happens with the shore cops or cops that work in areas that are not met with resistance from the community. This is a nice town. They're not dealing with a propensity for violence. People are on the beach. Most of them, I'm sure there may be some hiding it in bags, but most of them, they're in bathing suits. I mean, we see the girl, she's in a bathing suit. He's in a wetsuit. Clearly, they're not armed. They're not a threat to their life. They're a threat to their persona. You can clearly see that by the way the cops are acting because they're so overzealous. So sometimes people have to realize you're a cop. You're not God. Well, he didn't listen to me. Well, you're going to deal with people that don't listen to you. It's how you react. There's actions and consequences. He's taken off at this point. And Paul, you make a good point. Is he actually leaving? I don't know. Are we going to follow this guy because he didn't pay the beach badge? I don't even know. What does it cost? There was someone in here that said that if you actually rent at the shore, that it's supposed to be included the beach badge. I don't know about that. But really, are we going to run after him at this point because he didn't listen to you? That's what this is about. He didn't listen to him. That's why he took after him. I don't know if there's a law yet for someone being an asshole. I dealt with assholes every day. Paul, you dealt with them. John, you dealt with them. We deal with assholes. That's all we dealt with. I didn't deal with the nice people. And if there was somebody like him, I'd be happy to deal with this guy working in South Bronx, the 112 Priest on Lower East Side. But this is the worst part of my day. A guy that doesn't have a gun on him, he's in a wetsuit, and he's going to just, not going to listen to me. Okay, buddy. I'm going to let that bother me. Okay, go have a nice walk, buddy. That's it. That's my thoughts.
You know what? Mike just gave me a nice comment. Thank you, brother. You know what? I think would be great if you were able to get a cop from one of those departments on, and maybe they could articulate what the issue is. I could tell you that I never in my life thought that I would care about graffiti until I went to Central Park, right? Central Park, it was a big thing. You can't deface any of the property. They had like meetings about it, and it would get on the media and the news and all of this crazy stuff that we would just not care about in the 2-8. In task force, they were big on counterfeit goods, Louis Vuitton bags, DVDs, all that other stuff that, again, I didn't care about when I was in other commands. I don't know if this is an issue in that place. I could tell you that when we belonged to a pool, we had to pay $700 a year to access that pool. And they put some kid out in front, 17 years old or whatever, checking for wristbands. And there were people that would come in and say, screw it, I'm not paying. And that would piss everyone else off. So you have this little kid in charge, they're civilians, checking them for wristbands. And if they give the kid a hard time, they'll call the boss. And eventually, I guess it's never happened, but they'll call the cops. Excuse me. So we don't know if that's the issue here. One of the issues, I think, is that cops are always expected to do something. They never want to see you sitting on your ass in the patrol car. You could be in the Hamptons where it's, peaceful and there's no crime. They'll complain that you're not, going after someone who stole a bicycle. I don't know how big of an issue it is there. Maybe all of those people on the beach were happy that this asshole was getting collared because they're paying, he's not, or supposedly he's not. He says he had a beach badge, but we don't really know. So I would say that everything is expected. The cops are always supposed to be doing something. If this happened to be an issue there, then I can't fault the cop. If you're having meetings about this, if the town is complaining that there's no revenue or the revenue is dropping because we got half the people on the beach that aren't paying and it's not fair to those who are, then I could see this being an issue in that locality, not where we work.
Paul, wait 1 minute. Hold on a second. You and I both work in New York City, and I love you, brother. But you're telling me that no matter what, this cop, you're going to run this guy down. You're going to run him down to grab this guy. He doesn't have his beach bag. I'm going to run him down. I'm going to grab him. I'm going to wrestle him down. I'm going to take his surfboard away. I'm going to put him on the ground and put him in cuffs. Now, listen, this guy's got a gun on him. I would run at people full force. They have a gun on him. He's going to take him. I'm running at him full force. I'm taking him down, getting that gun and putting him in handcuffs. But he doesn't have his beach badge. I'm going to run down. I'm going to be posturing. I'm flexing. I'm taking this guy down. I'm taking his surfboard away. And now I got his girl involved. That's the worst thing with the girls there, too. She's just going to exacerbate the situation over a beach badge. That's why I say pick and choose your battles. Yeah, you don't get to pick where you work and pick the environment, but you get to pick how you respond because of actions and consequences. And I think graffiti is horrible. It destroys an area. But to run somebody down for this, you're in a lose-lose situation. That's bad for you.
Yeah, and just Paul, before you go, and just to add in on that, like I don't correlate this with graffiti or any other type of low-level crime. Graffiti is terrible. I think graffiti really needs to be addressed because it is like one of the pure factors of broken windows. If you see buildings that are graffitied up, I mean, it just leads to social decay. Like it destroys people's like a view of your city. It destroys businesses' view of the city. It destroys your own view of your own city. So I think graffiti is terrible. Somebody had a comment here on they were smoking a joint and the 2-4 narcotics cops jumped out on him, threw him in a headlock. Now I'm going to say, I listen, I've been stopped a million times and I've stopped people for marijuana and I've locked people up for marijuana, but not just for marijuana. I think that is a totally different scenario than this, right? You're out on the street in New York City, you're smoking marijuana, which is illegal. This is a beach badge. This is a town ordinance. This isn't even really a crime, right? So that's 1 and 2. Smoking marijuana at that time was a crime. You're on the street. You could potentially have a knife, a firearm, or anything else out on that street that day. So those cops are really worried about their safety. These cops, I think the only thing they have to be concerned with here is that surfboard. Right? Like I don't see any other reason to really go hands-on with this guy at all unless he starts to fight with you or you take the surfboard out of his hand. Like I wouldn't be standing that close to him with the surfboard, but like it's totally like those are totally different scenarios to me than this. This is like completely avoidable to me. It's a completely avoidable. Get off the beach. I wouldn't have went right to you're going to get locked up if you don't show me your ID. The Ben Line, all right, you got to go then. If you don't have your beach badge, you got to go. And that's not what it was. It was instantly, you don't have your beach badge, you're getting locked up. And he was getting ready to lock him up when the dude walked away. He wanted his ID. And where are you getting your ID from? Oh, hold on. Let me reach in my wetsuit and pull it out. Like, where are you getting it? Like, what do you think?
No, he said it was in his bag. He said it was in his bag, I think I heard him say. Listen, we all can agree because we all worked in New York City. We wouldn't care about this. We would ignore it. And if the guy wants to leave. I will say that there is the cop made it personal because he told him, do not leave. And the guy gets up, the guy just simply walks away. So the cop made it personal. I could say this, and if I had to bet, if you ask people in the comments, people that came on a little bit later than me would have used more discretion and say, okay, get off the beach. And I think that's the best thing to do. If he's leaving, I don't think he's leaving. He's there with his girl. You're probably going to see him on the water within 10 more minutes. And it's a big, he's giving the finger to the cops. Okay. But I would say that cops, they came on a little bit earlier. If you tell someone they're detained and they say, I don't care, and they walk away, they're under. And it might not be the right thing to do, but if they have enough at that point, the only thing, like I said, when the guy said, okay, I have my pass, let me show it to you, the cop should have let him show it to him. And then this whole thing could have been avoided. But I think cops that came on a little bit earlier would agree with me. Cops that came on a little bit later, and you could ask the people in the comments, good or bad? Is this the cops acted properly or they should have just let him go? I think a lot of it has to do with when you came on the job. It doesn't mean that we all agree that the guy should have just been allowed to leave. I don't know if he was going to, but that would have been the smarter move. And we also, like you said, Eric, we're missing context. We don't know if they had a conversation for 15 minutes. We don't know if this guy started walking away from him for 10 minutes before that, and then the cop finally caught up to him, and then they had that conversation. There's a lot of stuff missing, and I wish that we saw the rest of the body cam footage. But if they're going to show this, knowing that they hate cops, they're only going to show the worst part of the interaction. And if this is all they got, to me, it's nothing. The cops acted properly. Maybe it could have been handled differently, but I think this is this isn't that big a deal.
Well, it speaks volumes to me, right? There's a couple things going on here, but it speaks volumes to me that, I know the shore. I have been to the shore so many times. I go out to the shore, have a good time, especially living in Staten Island, right? That's where you go. And it just speaks volumes to me that if you're a cop and you could spend this much amount of time dedicated to getting this guy's beach badge and ask you these questions, sure shows you have a lot of time. There's nothing going on in this town that's really that important, because if you could spend that much time just having this interaction, your day is pretty good as a cop, Right. See how gingerly this one cop is standing. This guy is no threat. And, I understand about not being close to surfboards, but I go to the beach a lot. I got a lot of friends in jiu-jitsu that also surf, and there's really not much you can do to somebody with a surfboard. It's kind of obtuse. It's a strange thing. You even tried to hit somebody, you wouldn't even get. It's just the way it doesn't really move too much. It would be hard. So I just think that these guys, honestly, I just think their personas were insulted mostly, and not even.
Yeah, he made it personal.
They made it personal because again, also, and I think you guys would agree, because we do it so often, the volume in New York City, I'm sure the cop that was here from Trenton, he probably agrees. There's an art of having people detained. There's an art to moving people without saying anything and without even touching them. You learn that as a cop, of where to stand, how to talk to people, and how to move to get them to be detained. So sometimes saying things, you get the opposite reaction. If I want someone not to walk away, I'm not going to say, hey, don't leave. Well, if I told someone don't leave and they're being an asshole, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to leave, because I've already given the indication that something's going to escalate further, because he already thinks, well, this is stupid, right? He's like, this is stupid. He's saying the same thing John's saying, right? John's saying, I would have known right away he doesn't have an ID, right? We would have all known based on our observation skills. It takes not too much common sense to realize this guy's in a wetsuit. Unless he has it in his thunderwear, he doesn't have ID on him. Maybe it's in his bag with his lady, whatever the case is. But he doesn't have it. So he at this point, he's like, these guys are stupid. You asked me for ID. No, I don't have an ID, buddy. And then they're like, don't leave. What do you mean don't leave? Over a badge? Well, I'm going to leave. So if I don't want him to leave, I'm not going to say don't leave. I don't know what you guys think about that. That's my thought on that.
No. I agree. I think he let it in. I think the cop escalated the situation. I think he does not have the ability to read a lot of data points and didn't know what the end of his mission was, unless his mission was to put him in handcuffs, which I do believe that was the mission. Two comments on here. I'll respond to both of them, and I like Paul to do it, and then Eric to do it. One, Juju, who's continuously trying to race bait us and paint us out to be racist, is saying the surfer got the complexion for protection. Same scenario would have ended differently for the surfer. Juju, all I'm going to say about that is you're 100% right. What would have happened is this would have been national media attention. The cops would have all been instantly fired, and there would have been politicians running all over the place. So yeah, it was a totally different situation because he did not have the complexion for protection. So, and I do think that this kid's going to suffer serious consequences for resisting arrest. The other one that I want you both to address after you addressed Juju is Donald Cannon. Donald Cannon says you have to look at it this way: the crime is the crime. You let go one person, and then it opens up the windows for more crime to happen. The problem was when he walked away from being detained. And before you go, Paul, I'm just gonna let both of you understand this right now. This is not a crime. I'm down the Jersey Shore often. There are times when my wife has forgotten the beach badges. So I'm sitting there, I have no idea, and here they come, inspection to make sure that me and my kids aren't getting drunk, and because we're doing absolutely nothing except enjoying the beach. So here they come and they inspect it, and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot the beach badges. They're like, all right, you guys have to leave that. Okay.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen yet. This is the body camera. There's no other missing contacts there. Like, so the thing is, you have to leave. This isn't a crime. And so now I'll be like, well, could my family just stay so I don't have to pack up all my beach stuff? And I've had interactions with people telling me, no, I've had to leave. And I told them, absolutely not. I'm going to get the beach badges and I'm coming right back because I'm not lugging the stuff all the way out. I've had this happen to me several times. And, because my wife forgot the beach badges. It's an absolutely ridiculous thing that doesn't provide public safety. And why was he being detained? He should have been asked to leave. That's my opinion on that. Paul, what do you got a response for Juju? And then if you could respond to Cannon, and then Eric after you.
Well, the race thing is, I'm so tired of hearing about this. We all have stories. I could tell you stories. Being a white guy, the cops in the 104 would treat us like shit. They take our beer. They take our fireworks. They throw us up against the wall. We were afraid of the cops. So I'm so tired of hearing that. It's honestly not worth addressing. But you said this person's a race baiter. I don't know who this person is. I would just like to go back to there is a lot of missing context.
John Joe. Yeah. Sorry, Paul.
Sorry, Paul.
We don't know if this cop spent 10 or 15 minutes talking to this guy nicely. Let me just tell you a quick story. One of the guys that I work with, Rick Ingber, he commented, the reason I wanted to work with Rick was I was a brand new sergeant in the 7th Precinct. I went in the unmarked car. We were working for a few minutes, and he had to give out, he was in conditions, I think, at the time. So their main issue is quality of life. This is back in 98. And he was able to talk to this guy somewhere in Rivington in such a way. I remember the guy's name was Adam. And Rick was able to talk to this guy in such a way that Rick gave him a summons, and he was so nice about it and professional that this guy Adam thanked him and shook his hand. So, and since then, I'm like, I got to work with this cop. This cop knows how to handle situations. He knows how to de-escalate. And maybe if you or, the three of us or Rick encountered this surfer, it would have turned out differently because of that approach. But again, we don't know. We don't know if the cop went up to him and said, give me your ID, you're going to jail. He could have been talking with him 20 minutes before that. And I think without that information, it's really hard to give a fair judgment. We're only seeing the worst part. Again, if this is the worst they can show us, I don't think it's that bad.
Corn Pop puts a great comment, which actually correlates to what Juju's saying here, right? Juju 10452, man. Love you, brother. Love you, Kaz, John, whoever you are. Just curious, what's 10452? I'm trying to decode that. We've already decoded your hashtag, so just let us know what 1045 is too. Corn Pop put, this could have escalated to an Eric Garner situation. That's absolutely right. Running at him full force to make this apprehension, this tussle, you don't know what direction it's going to go, and exactly what John just said. Because they're not going to support you. You can say, wait a minute, police officer, so-and-so, Smith, John, whatever your name is. There's not even a crime committed here. You've taken this person down. We've had to take this person's life because they resisted arrest. Anytime someone resists arrest, we don't know where these things are going to go. Any type of force could end up deadly. Any type of force. And anyone that's ever been involved in any training, anything, knows that it could turn into something deadly. He could fall, hit his head on a rock that's there at the sand on the beach. Anything could happen. So, based on what Juju's saying here, I'm going to reflect on what John's saying. I do think that this would be a different interaction based on complexion. You're absolutely right. If this surfer was black and had the same interaction, this would be national news. Maybe it would be international, especially if that person was taken down by the police and wrestled into handcuffs because they were black. This would now be a media circus. Potentially, we would see riots in Belmar from paid agitators that come from somewhere else because most of the people in Belmar are not black. So we would see BLM there. We would get a complete different reaction, and they would turn this town upside down. So, Juju, you're right about that. Race propaganda does play issues right now. And what was the other comment we were analyzing? Donald Cannon, I think it was, who said that we can't let people walk away. I get it. We can't let people walk away. But that's what takes good police officers. Is sometimes it's not saying things, it's doing it. Sometimes, and that's what I mean by the art of detaining someone without moving them. Or if he's walking away, you know what? You can say, hey, buddy, listen, you know what? I get it. You don't have your beach, but let's take a walk. Let's not embarrass you and have a spectacle in front of people. Let's take a walk. Let's talk about this. Because I agree with John. If I'm with my wife and kids, and John, you know what it is? Paul, you know what it is? Your wife sends you got your kids, you're at the beach, you're lugging all this stuff because you're the one carrying it, not the woman, right? Not the wife. And if there's some wives here, probably like, I'm carrying stuff too. You can comment here, but you got
my wife doesn't carry a damn thing, bro.
I hate it.
It's like, what's the problem? I'm like, oh no, nothing. It's just 105 degrees, and I'm pushing 100 pounds of shit. I'm good.
John, what's that beach in Florida where it's like literally from the street to the actual water? It's like a mile. The sand is huge, and you carry all this. You know what I'm talking about? I forgot which beach, but I never forget. I was with my wife and kids. I'm carrying all this stuff. I got the stuff on my back. I got the kids' shovels. I got all this stuff. The heavy bags. I'm exhausted. Your feet are like, getting buried in the sand. Imagine you carried all that stuff. You're sitting down. Cop comes up to you like, where's your beach badge? And you're like, it's like 2 miles back in your car, right? Yeah. Are you leaving? You think your wife's going to be like, yeah, we're going to pack up and go? She's like, we're not leaving. You're not leaving. You're like, all right, buddy, listen, I tell you what, I got my beach badge. Here's my name. Could you look it up somewhere? Can you speak to town ordinance? Check it out. I mean, I don't know if there's some database. Can't they check it out at least and look at it?
All right.
And that's what I mean about moving smartly as a cop. You can make this guy feel stupid without having to get to that point where, because these guys believe that by flexing their muscle, they get a response. No, the stoic person is the one that gets a response. You can say, you know what, buddy, listen, hey, you got a beach badge? Great. You know what? How about you give me your name and I'll check with ordinance. You have the beach badge. Next time, do me a favor, just bring it somewhere. I know it's kind of tough in this wetsuit.
Right.
Yeah. But there's a way to do things.
But yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Option Command Media. Donated $9.99 to the channel. He says, good morning. Hey, Paul, Matt from X/Twitter. I still call it Twitter too. Listen, we appreciate you very much.
What's up, brother?
I got 300 people in here. If you guys could just do me a favor, if you could like this, if you could subscribe to the channel, and if you could share it out, whatever social media you're on, I'll appreciate it. Let's get the conversation continuing to go. And yeah, I just want to hit one more time on the race thing. I honestly think it would be a totally different scenario, and this surfer would have been allowed to leave if he was a different race. That's my other opinion on it. And like, so I think all in all, like, listen, I don't think that the cops did anything wrong, and I don't think that they should be penalized here, but I think this video is a real big training moment. Because I do take issue really when it gets down to actually when they're fighting with him. While they're fighting him here, he's being a total douche. It is what it is. He's trying to get his hands behind his back. But for a while after he's handcuffed, he's left down in the sand, not on his side. Like, and I'm like, that's a very dangerous situation, dude. And I think, we could go from a beach badge to a death like this, and I think, like I said, I don't think that the cops did anything wrong. I just think it's a lot of poor training and a lot of poor tactics. And I think that the people of Belmar, when you look at this and you have kids or nephews or no young kids in your neighborhood, this could easily be any one of them, right? Like any one of the people And is this how you want the police to deal with your kid who isn't so street smart or savvy? Because obviously this kid isn't street smart and he hasn't dealt with cops and he's a complete moron. And he also escalated the situation.
Yes.
That's like, we're not going to lose sight of that either. And we're not trying to lose sight of that. The kid's an idiot. He's a dumb, shore kid that's never been involved with dealing with cops. And you get kids in the city too that think that they're street kids and they're not. And they escalate situations too, so we're not losing sight of that. All in all, I don't think that the cops deserve really any penalization at all. It is what it is. I hope that this kid doesn't suffer lifelong consequences for this interaction, but he's being charged with obstruction now. He's being charged with resisting arrest now. And I think all of these things, like, honestly, he's a dumb kid, and I hope this is a learning moment for him, but it should also be a learning moment for this police department and this town to say, what actually are we doing and what is really our scenario? Is our scenario that we're going to lock kids up for beach badges, or is the goal to get them off the beach? And I think the goal should be that you can't be here. And then if there's refusal at that point, then it should be moved into an arrest. And here it wasn't. It was straight to, you don't have ID. You're being an idiot with me. I'm going to lock you up because you hooked me. And I think it's a training moment, and I think that's my bigger thing in it. Eric, sorry, Paul, you were next.
Listen, it would be interesting to know what goes on in Belmar, right? If you had a way to pull up their stats, if they have shootings, if they have robberies, if they have any of the 7 majors.
I guarantee you they're not surfers, though. I guarantee you they don't have people in wetsuits.
Right. But what I'm trying to say is, if you work in a command where there is nothing to do, the public, the council, everyone will find something for you to do. It could be loud music. It could be pot smokers smoking on their porch and they're stinking up the whole block. It could be stolen bicycles. It could be graffiti. It could be anything. And if this is a very slow place with nothing else to do, then the cops have to, if like Eric, I think you said it, we don't get to choose the type of jobs that we respond to. So if you're getting multiple calls on this, we don't know. We keep thinking like the cop really didn't de-escalate. We don't know what transpired before the camera, before the footage that they uploaded. He could have been talking to him again for like 15 minutes. So I don't see anything wrong with this. And you're right about one thing. If that was a black perp on the floor, face down, all those cops would have been fired. All of them. And it would have been on the news. And it would have been surfing while black. That would have been the thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There is a double standard. I do agree with that person, but not in the way that he thinks I should.
Well, I think that the justice system has become discriminatory. I do think that in the court system, I do believe that if this was a young black kid that acted the same manner, I believe that this court case would be totally thrown out, and these cops, even though they do anything wrong technically, I think they would be facing some civil liability. I do. But because this is a white young kid and he's looked at as a kid of privilege, that's the way the court system looks at him now, I believe that he will face the arm of justice, and I do believe that there's going to be some repercussions for him. Yes. He's a complete asshole, this kid. I just want to confirm that. He's an asshole. He's an idiot. He's a snooty kid, but we don't lock people up for being assholes and being snooty. Let his parents teach him how to be an adult in life. It's not the job of the police to teach him, but it's the job of the police to look at the bigger picture and understand what they're faced with. I have the most complaints. I'm the most complained cop. I've punched people in the face. I deployed force many times, but I knew the long game. I was in situations fighting for my life. I never pulled the trigger because there was plenty of times I was fighting over guns and the guns fell out and I had to punch someone repeatedly to get them in handcuffs, and so they didn't shoot me. But am I going, and oddly enough, people don't know this, in situations like this, I would never use force. I use force when it was necessary. But I would never use force in a situation. I'm not running at the person. I'm looking at the big game, the long game. If I have to use force and potentially it goes bad, and just as John said, you know what? This could go from not having a badge, which is not even a crime. It's violating the ordinance, and it ends up in a deadly encounter. So, and ultimately, you have to ask yourself as a cop, does it matter the actions you did, or is it ultimately about the outcome? And when it comes to optics right now, the end result, you are analyzed based on the outcome. I used to say it all the time to my cops. Don't let yourselves be analyzed based on the outcome. You have to do everything within the law and everything about the Supreme Court cases. When you stop someone, a self-initiated encounter, if that encounter is not accurate and you get the firearm, sometimes I do believe that there is a pass. Oh, they got the firearm, so it's a good stop. It was you're not going to face any civil liability, because if you have the same encounter and the person didn't have the firearm, it's going to be weighted differently against you. So when it comes to optics, it's about the outcome. And if this outcome ended up deadly for the surfer or even the cop, if something happened to the cop, it could happen inadvertently. Is it worth it over a beach badge? It's not. And that's why the cops are the authority, the ones with the experience. And that's why I agree with you, John. Paul, I agree. I think you have amazing points on this. We have to analyze this. This is a great training video. This should be value for this police department. We talk about community and the police department. The community and the police department moving together. Say, hey, listen, what do you guys want? This is an issue. People aren't paying, but look at this encounter we had. How can we move forward?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think this was the major fail here. So Ron says, I disagree, John. He wasn't leaving. He was trying to play street lawyer, saying he could use private beach to access the ocean. So right here and then, I agree with you. He's being a complete idiot. But I think that the cop is escalating the situation here. Instead of saying, well, you could leave, then you can't stay here. You're going to leave. He doesn't say that to him. He says, I want your ID. And he boxes him into the scenario. He boxes them into that I need ID and I need a beach badge. And now you're getting enforcement action because you're on the beach without an ID. And then the kid walks away. He does walk away and he's followed for a significant amount of time where, so right here and then, so then this is what the chief says is like, so this cop already dictates this is an enforcement situation, right? He's like, you're not free to leave. You can't go anywhere, which is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Tell the kid to get off the beach. Instead, he boxes this in to this is going to be an enforcement encounter, which I totally disagree with because it is an ordinance. This is not a law. So now what the police chief is saying and what they're all hanging their hat on is, well, we didn't arrest him for not having a beach bag. We arrested him for obstruction because, so the obstruction is that your officer got hooked because he doesn't have a good tactic on dealing with people. He got completely hooked. But at the ultimate goal was to not have people on the beach without the beach badges, right? Or to get this kid to go buy a beach badge if he comes back. This kid is clearly leaving. He's clearly leaving. Is he free to leave at this point? No, only because the officer got hooked, which is ridiculous. I mean, again, I think this is a terrible moment. I think that this really needs to get looked at and they need complete retraining. The course of action should have been, you can't be on this beach. If now he's saying, oh, no, whatever, you can't be on the beach, I get it. I'm not leaving. Then I understand. I understand it. But we skipped a step here. And I think we really forced the scenario. And honestly, I think that it's a bad look on. If I was the police chief, like I said, I don't think these guys did anything wrong. And I wouldn't discipline anybody here. I would definitely not seek to hit this kid I wouldn't seek to ruin this kid's life over this incident right here. But I would 100% look to be retraining what we're doing and how we're handling these situations. And Paul, I'll tell you right now, Belmar, you know what happens there? Kids are on the beach, they get drunk, they get into fights. There's a lot of stuff that these cops have to deal with, a lot of nonsense and stupidity. So on some of these beaches, I understand the looking around for the alcohol. I get it because you don't want things to get out of control. Though that is a problem. That is something the community is going to complain about. Drunk driving, drunk fights. People can't enjoy the beach with their family. I get those scenarios like doing that. But again, it's like, let's pick and choose those battles too. Are you going off the guy sitting there with his wife and his kids, not bothering anybody, or are you going for the group of guys that are hanging out, getting loud, blasting their music, Right. So I think that, like, I'm not saying they don't have anything to deal with here and they should ignore everything. I'm not saying that at all. But all I'm saying is when you go through their list of problems, I don't think you're going to get any complaints from the community about surfers like doing anything that like disregards public safety or has a real impact on this beach. So that's just my thought on it. I mean, anyone feel free to disagree with me. I respect it, but that's what I see. This is completely unnecessary.
Ron Lace is on fire here. He's cooking. He said, but I agree with Paul. We don't have all facts, but it is Belmar and his directions could be zero tolerance. I get it. I get it. You're right, Ron. The directions to the police department may be zero tolerance. Everyone here has to have a beach badge. No one has to pay. I'll tell you right now. Maybe it's easy for me to say because I worked in the South Bronx. I worked in Stapleton, Staten Island. I worked in the Lower East Side of the projects. I am not chasing someone down and wrestling them into handcuffs. This kid's no match for me. All right, I'm not trying to brag, but he's no match for me. I'm not wrestling him and tussling him down to the ground over a beach bag and facing civil liability on camera, wrestling this kid down because he doesn't have a beach badge and looks stupid. Obviously, he doesn't have a beach badge on him. He's in a wetsuit. I don't care he's being an asshole. I'm going to let that roll over my shoulders. I'll address it in another way if there's zero tolerance. Exactly. Listen, you have to leave. You can't stay on this beach right now. I'll get close to him. I'll have a conversation with him. I'm not going to make a spectacle out of it. Listen, just come here, have a beach badge, find out. He's like, oh, this is stupid. Yeah, it is stupid. I understand. All right, just you got to leave right now. Come back with your beach badge. Put it on the people. Listen, this is what they want. They want everybody to pay. I'm sorry. talk to the people, the ordinance. But am I going to be running down and wrestling him? He's no threat to me. This kid's not got no gun on him. Maybe that's easy for me to say because I worked in the South Bronx, and every I wrestled with had a gun on him. You know, not every person has a gun on. You know, before Juju 10452, put something out there. No, not everyone in the South Bronx has a gun on them. But the people that I was searching in the South Bronx, they had guns. The people I was fighting with, they had guns because those are the people that I dealt with. This kid is no threat. It's absolutely ridiculous. I get it. If that's what they want for zero tolerance, there's other ways to handle it. And you know what? At least talk to the commanding officer after say, listen, this is what the town wants. We need to go to a community meeting and find how we're going to handle this because we can't wrestle kids into handcuffs because he doesn't have a beach bench because eventually you will have an incident where someone does die because you're applying force.
Well, yeah, Eric Gardner was over cigarettes, right? Let me just say this. I think the reason why we can be so critical over this is because we all worked in the ghetto. Imagine working every day as a cop on the beach. Like you talk about a great detail, right? I don't know if this is an issue there. Again, I don't know. But I would say that if we let everyone who we were going to issue summonses to simply walk away, we'd have no summonses. I don't think summonses are a big issue today because we have crackheads and rapists and murderers with all the migrant crime and everything else going on. It's almost laughable that you would go after people for squeegees, right? And the stuff that we used to do, jumping turnstiles and stuff. But back in the 90s, it was an integral part of policing. And if they're just going to simply walk away because they don't want to be detained, we'd have no summonses. The other thing is, John, you mentioned this earlier, that this could be, a family member of yours. I could tell you right now, if this was my kid, I'd say you deserve it. What the fuck are you doing walking away? And I think you guys would act the same way. We teach our kids respect. We know that our kids would never act like this. And
you would be happy with that. I mean, this kid's going to get resisting arrest for the rest of his life. If he ever goes to become a cop or federal agent, his life is ruined.
Listen, sometimes you gotta learn the hard way. If you're going to be an asshole and mouth off to police, then there are repercussions, of course. But let's talk about the big issue here. The guy was white. We all said if he was black, they would have let him go. So this will be an issue for this guy going forward. I mean, they're misdemeanors. I don't know what this guy wants to do with his life. He'll just explain, I was young and stupid, just like I got a beer summons when I was younger. And you'd have to explain it away.
Summons versus obstructing governmental administration.
It's OJ though, but it's not a felony. It's a misdemeanor. And the guy, we listen, we all agree there's missing context. We all agree that there's other things to do than chase down people who don't have beach badges, right? We all agree with that. But we also all agree that once you're being detained, you don't leave. My problem with the way the cops acted was once he said, I have it in my bag, you say, okay, then show it to me. And it would have been done unless he didn't have it. But I don't think he was leaving the beach. And for all we know, this could have been their third or fourth encounter with this guy. Who knows? There's so much that we don't know about. From what I saw just from the footage, I don't have a problem with it.
I had made a comment on X, and I agree with this, right? That even when the police are in a position where they may be wrong, and you're the adversary, you should always take the high road. That I agree with. You should always take the high road. But I don't know how old he is. But anyway, you should always take the high road. So I would educate my family, and I always tell myself, I have to remind myself when I'm in situations to take the high road. If someone bumps into me in the supermarket, I don't care. But if they start giving me an angry look and they want to fight, I believe I take the high road. All right, buddy, no problem. Have a nice day. Listen, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bump into you. I do take the high road. If I was stopped by police and they were acting stupidly, you know what? I would take the high road. All right, you want to handcuff me? No problem. We'll settle it in court. I'll have the court show that the police acted improperly. I'll have the court show the police didn't do their job. But you learn that over time. At his age, would I have known that? I don't know. Honestly, I don't think I would know it at his age. Maybe. I mean, I was young. I went in the Marines. You do learn to grow up quickly. But at his age, just surfing, I don't know, especially with what these kids are learning about police, not just police. The generation now, there's not really much respect for authority. It's different. They're more argumentative. They question things, right? We all come from a different era. Paul, yourself, myself, and John. When we were young, we really didn't question authority. I I know, John, you had a lot of interactions with the police, but even then, we didn't really question authority the way the kids do now. It's a different generation. So,
no, because if I did this, my father would punch me in the face. So, like, and
Thank you.
Exactly.
That's what I mean.
No.
That's my point, bro.
No, my father, even if I didn't do anything, my father would beat the shit out of me. You know, so Ron makes a good point though. He says, John, did the 1-2-3 have a conditions team? If so, what was the mission? Not same as say 7, 7-3, 7-5, 7-0. I think it's a good point, and I think it's something to really highlight there. So one, yes, I believe the mission was exactly the same. Were the conditions the same? No, the mission was we would go after. Well, I wasn't on the conditions team, but they would go after quality of life offenses, drinking, graffiti, things of that nature, smoking marijuana in the parks, things of that nature. Were they dealing with the same factors in the 7-3, where those same kids that were smoking marijuana and drinking and doing graffiti were also carrying guns and involved in robberies? No. But the kids that they were dealing with were involved in the drug trade and were involved in burglaries and were involved in thefts from auto. So it was very similar strategy. And that's a lot of what the progressives go after. It's like, well, broken windows didn't work because we only did it in black and brown high crime neighborhoods. And it's like, that's not true at all. Broken windows went throughout the entire city. So I think the mission was the same. Were the conditions the same? No, they absolutely weren't. But now that's a great point, because that brings in the ability that you have to be able to rationalize when you're a police officer. You have to be able to put things into perspective, right? You have to be able to say, is this a big deal or not? So, Paul, I agree with you. These guys work on the beach, but maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they should take our friend from Trenton, New Jersey, and put him on the beach towards the end of his career, because but again, I do believe this could also be trained. Like, what are we teaching our cops to do? Because I'll tell you right now, if these guys were in the 1-2-3, Ron, I don't know if you know how many chiefs, how many politicians, how many people live in the 1-2-3. If any of those condition cops treated a kid that was drinking a beer that really wasn't a bad kid but was dumb like him and had an attitude like him, they would be fired, or they'd be working in the Bronx. They would, and potentially even be prosecuted. They would not be dealing. You just can't. You have to be able to understand what you're dealing with and what you have, and that's a big part of the reason that I always say that, like, I think that people should have had to have grown up in the city prior to becoming a cop here, because I just really feel like you need to understand what you're dealing with. And I think the same thing in Belmar. You know, yeah, Skaggs kids, 100%. Scagnelli's kids were terrible though, and that was a bad time in the 1-2-3. Those kids were absolutely horrendous. Those kids were absolutely horrendous. They were doing burglaries, and he was getting them off for it. I mean, so that was a lot of corruption in the NYPD.
Didn't he stab someone? Didn't want to
stab someone in a club in Manhattan. They actually jumped me one night when I was a kid, you know, so like they were terrible, and the cops wouldn't do anything, you know, and that was complete, absolute corruption. I'm talking about like when things became more full circle for cops and there was more attention on them. Like you really had to back off at that point. And I think that's the bigger thing here when we're watching all of this is like Paul, your mentality, and I think Ron's mentality is from a different point of view and a different perspective, because there wasn't as much scrutiny. There wasn't a lot of, so this interaction would have never made the media. This would have never went anywhere unless it was something big like the Abdul Louima incident or something like that. You're not getting media attention like this, and these little interactions aren't going to be scrutinized. But now that the public has the ability to see it, I think, you know, is it unfair for the newer cops? Maybe, but I think overall for public safety and for the community, I think it's a better thing that like we could hone in and say, because ultimately the cops should reflect the community.
I also think that sorry, Paul, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just want to jump in with this real quick. But I also think that during your era and Ron's era, I think that back then this wouldn't even happen, because I think this kid would have been in total fear, because it was a different perspective and different optics of the interactions of police with the public. Kids back then were fearful of the police.
Yes.
That's why I said the generation now is totally different. I think that this would never happen. Back then, you could kind of muscle your way through things. I think there was a lot of cops back then that were not as intelligent as now. John likes to say that this was the best era, and I do believe that the cops now are more intelligent. I think the cops then, in some ways, were more effective, but I think the cops now are more intelligent in comparison to what we see right now with the interaction with these cops. Because I think back then that you can get by if you don't have the intelligence, the emotional intelligence that you do now, because the cops then would be like, all right, buddy, don't move. Where's your stupid beach badge? Oh, I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is. The kid would be nervous. I'm like, all right, well, let's go walk together. You're going to go get it. And that's probably how the interaction would go, because they were fearful. Now there's no fear of authority. And that's why I said earlier about this generation. They question authority, because this is the way they're indoctrinated in elementary school and junior high school and high school and even college right now. For those that are going to college, this is what they're learning. And we see it right now, post George Floyd and the media attention, the propaganda about police. So it's a complete different era. We have to move differently. What are your thoughts on that, Paul? I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, could we ask Ron when he came on? Because we all worked in the same agency. We're all white males. The only difference is, and we all worked in the ghetto. The only difference is we came on at different times. So I'm just curious to see if the people that agree with me came on a little bit earlier than you guys, and the guys that came on around your time agree with you. August 93. There you go. And I came on in June of 92. So, and I believe that most of the people that came on around the time that I did would
you guys probably
think
crossed paths. You guys probably crossed paths together.
Yeah. Somebody said that you should have just escorting him out and no big deal. I agree with that too. I think Mike said that too. Pull him over, pull him someplace where nobody else could hear you. And then, just make sure that he leaves the beach. I don't know that he was going to leave the beach again, but if we let everyone simply walk away when you were going to summons them, we'd have no summonses.
Hold on, Paul. I got to ask you, Paul, I love you.
Yeah.
I have to ask you a question, okay? Forget about policing then, all right? Because if you made the choice, like John Shell and Kaz Daughtry, or whatever the case, to stay in this job, you came on in 93, 92. You can't
92.
Stay on the job, whatever the case is. You're not aging out. And you dealt with this dilemma here. You dealt with this situation. Okay, the kid walks away. He's not paying attention to you. All we have right now, we know he doesn't have a gun on him. He's no threat. He clearly doesn't have any ID on him. He clearly doesn't have the beach badge. Let's just say he's the biggest asshole. He's not getting that beach. I'm sorry. He doesn't have that badge. He didn't pay. He says he's leaving. He's walking away, and then he starts to walk back. What are you going to do? Are you going to play cat and mouse with this kid? Are you going to run him down? Because they made the determination they're going to put him in handcuffs. And I'd like John, I would love you to answer this too. What are you going to do? Are you going to run down and wrestle him down to the ground? What decision are you going to make in your head right now with the optics right now? And if that cat and mouse game starts to happen, people are going to come out with their cell phones. What are you going to do? I'm curious.
I would say that now at 54 years old, being out for 16 years, I would say, of course not. Who gives a shit? Let him go. But again, we all worked in busy commands. If that is their main issue in that locality, and he's already going to get a summons, and he says, like you said, Eric, he's acting like a male Karen and saying no, and he walks away, he's getting a summons. I don't know. I mean, again, let him produce the pass. If he has the beach pass, then all he does, it's a big apology, and you say, all right, no big deal. Next time, don't act like an asshole, and I wouldn't have to follow you. We don't know if this guy was seen 3 hours before that and gave the cops a hard time. We don't know if they've been chasing this guy for a couple of other tours before this, and the cops finally caught up with him. We have no idea.
But Paul, what honestly, you're the police officer. That's your job right now. You've already you made zero tolerance. You made the decision that he has to show that beach badge. He's walking away. Right now it's 2024. Let's say August 26, 2024. That's your job. You work in Belmar. What are you going to do? Honestly, I'm not trying to make fun.
So this is exactly how it would end, dude. Show me a beach pass, or you got to leave. That's it. And I would treat that even in the 90s. I would go up to him and say, listen, I know you think this is bullshit. I do too, but this is a big thing here. See all these people, they all pay. Look, he's got a beach pass. She's got a beach pass. And you know what? We've got multiple calls that there are people here that aren't paying, and it's not fair. Do me a favor. Where's your bag? Your bag's over there. I know you don't have it on. You're in a wetsuit. Let's walk over to the bag. Show me your beach pass, and we're on our way. That's how I would have handled it. That's how the cops I work with would have handled it, and it probably would have ended a different way. My point again is we don't know. That could have happened. We don't have the body cam footage. The cop could have been negotiating with this guy for 20 minutes. So we just don't know.
Well, I think we have. Honestly, I think this was the interaction right here. You seen him put his body cam before he walked up to him. I think we do have the context of it, and like I said, like I'm just taking the Chief's word as gold. I'm just taking it as gold. Is that kid was an idiot and he walked past the civilians and then the cops interacted with him. Ron says, I take issue with the statement that the cops are more intelligent today. It's a different job, more technology, social media. I don't agree it's a difference in intelligence. Cops have less discretion today. So, Ron, if we said that, we definitely don't mean intelligence. But I do think that cops today have a greater vision than you guys had. I think we see things more from a further outlook. And it's not because we're smarter than you. It's not because we went to college. If anything, I'm going to say that we're a dumber generation than your generation. We're less street smart. We have less intelligence. We think about social issues less. But as far as that relates to police work and enforcement of laws, I think we see things from a greater perspective because the lens is so on us, you know. And again, I could go time after time. Kid in the park, my friend made a ramp where he was skateboarding off of it. They lit the ramp on fire. Cops came, put it out, said a couple of choice words, which whatever. Curse words and things like that don't bother me. They never did. I grew up around a lot of people that said the terrible things, so they never bothered me. But the cop wasn't really. He really escalated the situation. And my friend said, and we were kids. I was like 11. My friend was 13. And the cop said to him, what did he say to him? The kid goes, I want your badge number. And the cop goes, oh, you want my badge number? Come here. And he took his nightstick and he pointed to it. So my friend went to read it and he cracked my friend over the head with the nightstick, left him bleeding on the ground, got back in his RMP and bounced. He was in the 6'2".
Hold on. Was your friend white?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell that to the people that say this only happens to, it doesn't happen to white people. Listen, If you're an asshole as a cop, it doesn't matter. You're going to be abusive to white people. You're going to be abusive to somebody's wife. You're going to be abusive to children, to kids. You're going to be, if you're a dick on this job, if you weren't on this job, you would be a dick at Home Depot. If you worked there, you would be an asshole no matter where you worked. Unfortunately, we have some of them on the job. Those are the ones that make the news. And I have no problem admitting, talking about the difference in policing today than when I came on. But
this was my point in the whole thing, Paul, is that like when the other cops seen that, they were so much more heavy-handed than cops are today. They dealt with you guys dealt with a lot of situations that like were insane, dude. Like honestly, like I could go on for days playing basketball in the park. The sun creeps down, and next thing I know, I'm getting slammed up against the fence and tossed while I'm sweating in basketball shorts with no pockets. I'm like, dude, what is going on, bro? And like, I think that like today, because of the scrutiny of this, they have a greater vision. That was my whole point. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to clarify why I brought that up. Not because I'm bashing it, but I think overall, cops, if that would have happened today, that cop would have been fired. Literally, we had to rush my friend to the hospital with a cracked skull. The cop just left. Nothing happened to the guy. The guy was back the next day driving by.
Yeah, and he should have been fired. But like I was saying before, I have no problem admitting to the whole world I could not be a cop today. Not in the NYPD, not living under that microscope, not with body cameras and cell phones everywhere. And it wasn't because I did anything wrong. I was involved with numerous arrests. I have 0 force complaints. I knew how to talk to people. Not everybody has that ability. I think maybe training. I don't know if they had it when you were on, something called verbal judo, where the cops with the most complaints were required to go and sit, and they all came back. It was positive feedback. They all said that it was great. So I think there is a way to talk to people to prevent it from escalating. But with the cameras and the microscope that they're living under now, I absolutely could not do it. I would have been fired. Not because I was doing something rogue or illegal, just the stress. You know, I was nice to everybody, even the perps, you know, and it's more difficult to be a cop today than it was when I was on the job.
I'd like to respond to Ron Lace's statement. I'm not trying to offend any old timers on the job. There's a lot of active cops on this thread that listen to this podcast, and there's a lot of retired cops that we speak to that are friends and listen to this podcast, and I thank them. I mean, some of the retired cops are probably cops that I learned from. But what I said, Ron, and I'm not trying to tell you, I didn't say intelligence. I said emotional intelligence. And I stand by that position because I think we evolve over time and we learn that emotional intelligence is important in policing under the watch of body cameras and oversight. And there's a difference between intelligence. I'm not saying that they were more educated then or now. I'm not talking about education. I'm talking about emotional intelligence. That's something that we learn over time. And that is the ability to understand others and to manage our own stress in positive ways, and that to have more empathy with people and to diffuse conflict is something that we've learned to diffuse more conflict because of cameras and because of optics in comparison to times where you didn't have so much oversight, that you could be more authoritative in those positions because of the fear, and there wasn't as much oversight, and that people would comply with you more than they would now. So I do stand by that position, and I'm saying that we have to utilize more emotional intelligence over time. So I don't mean actual intelligence, because I agree with John. Some of the most intelligent people are self-educated and self-taught that I have met who are not college educated. I have a college education. I'm glad I did it, but I don't think that makes me more intelligent than someone that didn't, because life experience is very important. Some of the people I have met in my life that do not have a college education are super intelligent, are some of the smartest people. So I hope that clarifies it. Not trying to offend any retired guys. Thank you so much for listening. I've learned a lot from retired guys. But I do think emotional intelligence is something that we evolve and we have to utilize more when we're doing the oversight of optics, especially now in this era that we live in dealing with a generation that questions authority in comparison to a generation back then of John, myself, and you, Paul, where we were more compliant with authority.
Yeah, I agree. Like you guys dealt with much higher crime than we dealt with. I think that you guys were much tougher than we were, much more masculine. I think you were much more street smart than this generation. But I do think policing has evolved, and that's one of the areas, like the high sight of what the gravity of each situation. Because like that story I just told about the 6'2", no one in the surrounding precincts even heard that story, right? Never mind anybody in Queens or Manhattan to be like, wow, maybe we shouldn't have did that. You know, that's a bad look. I wouldn't do that. Like, and then we can have these discussions and build upon it. Like that didn't happen back then. And that's what we're saying is like, it's just a larger view. And it's not because of intelligence. It's because of the technology and the ability of the free flow of information. But while we're on the subject of intelligence, I think we should talk about who should actually be in policing. And I think what we're seeing is that, honestly, the Chief of Patrol and Kaz Daughtry really don't have the emotional intelligence and the ability to continue in their roles. I really, at this point, I'm going to say I think that they should be removed. You know, we've been under heavy attack. You guys all witnessed the racist smear campaign made against myself, Eric, and we welcome it because we don't care. There's nothing racist about us. So, you know, the constant trolling, this has been going on for ever since the day I left the police department, because I said I wouldn't let Eric Adams, Harvey Weinstein me. So I never cared about any of the stuff, and I never cared about any of the criticism. But when you're a leader, are you really going to sit there and respond to every criticism? So John Shell, you know, they do their whole racist smear campaign against us. They get all these people to align with them, all these different organizations, and basically it goes nowhere. So congratulations on your failed mission. I'm sure there'll be something else down the pipeline. But John Shell goes on Newsmax, American Agenda. He only started going on Newsmax, by the way, him and Kaz Daughtry, after I would go on there. So they only started to go there because they want to control the media. They want to control the narrative, which he's said time and time again. So he went on Newsmax, and I played that, and I'm not going to play that again for you, but he played it where he said that violent major crimes been down 3 years in a row. He said crime's down, crime's been down, we're keeping crime down, violent crime's down, all lies. All complete, utter lies. And he goes on, and then he tweets this out. Thank you, Newsmax American Agenda and WPIX Picks on Politics with Dan Mamorano, who is the ultimate softball layup. He shouldn't even be considered news. It should just be considered the propaganda wing of the New York City Police Department. And at this point, too, Viral News New York City. His other nickname is Leroy Press. He should consider himself Leroy's Press. That's Eric Adams' middle name, Eric Leroy Adams. So it's very fitting that he is Leroy's Press because he is a complete sycophant for this mayor and the New York City Police Department at this point. He went from being a Black Lives Matter guy to a freedom movement guy to now he is a cheerleader for the New York City Police Department and Eric Adams. And then as Sal Greco likes to call him, the migrant czar, he believes that he is the expert on migrants, which I don't know why he believes that, but he does. So anyway, so Chief of Patrol puts that out, and he says the continued support to present the factual narrative. Now, mind you, he lied. He lied. He told you violent crime is down 3 years in a row. He told you crime's been down 3 years in a row. That is not the factual narrative. That is a lie. The safest big city in America. I don't know what I don't know. I didn't do the math on all of them, but whatever. Nobody's feeling that. Nobody cares, even if it is. They want more improvement. Have a great and safe weekend, everyone. Let's keep it together now. Strength and honor. And he writes EDW, BTB, BMS, YTGO. Right? So these are all hidden cryptic messages. Again, I'm going to say this was late at night and his conscience is bothering him. He's sitting there and he's drinking. And EDW, let's get into EDW. Cop Watch, we used to call Eric Dimwit. Because I wonder. So here's my question, Paul. Let's go around on that. Do you think that John Schell's sane? And do you think that any city official, taxpayer-funded civil servant, should be allowed to utilize hashtags they don't identify? By the way, BMS, I was a sergeant in the building maintenance section. I did do 13 years on the street, and I effected more arrests than John Schell. Until today, I am still more respected by the men and women of the NYPD than John Schell, and it eats him alive. So he continues to try to attack my career. So do you think that these hashtags should be identified, or is this cool? Should the NYPD Chief of Patrol be allowed to lie to the public of New York City and not present the factual data? And should he be allowed to use hidden messages through hashtags? And do you believe that this is normal?
Well, this is the way I don't, excuse me, I don't know them personally. I know that I don't like what Shell's doing to you guys, but you know that I've been saying for years, we need someone to actually say, let's take the city back. So in that aspect, I appreciate what he's doing on the job. We know that everyone has been lying about figures since I was on the job, right? Since CompStat came out, I think in 94 or 95. So it's not like we can't verify that he's not telling the truth. It's a dumb thing to do. I think the bigger issue is we were taught to have thick skin, right? It blows my mind. A couple of things blow my mind here. Number one, why do they care so much that they have to act this immature and this childish to even feed in to what retired guys are saying about them? Because you know that if a cop gets jammed up and the reasoning is like something on that beach where he told me to go fuck myself, or, you know, they would say, well, you're supposed to have thick skin. And this gets back to what I was talking about before, where collars aren't everything, but if you're going to become a CO and ask your guys to collar, then you should have done it too. So there are cops that are getting jammed up because they made it emotional. They became emotional. They got hooked. And John Schell and everyone else in the job would tell them, you need to have thick skin. You need to let this stuff roll off your back. They're obviously not doing that. For them to sit down during, I guess, with taxpayer money, right, on duty, and to even address this stuff and make it personal is childish, and it's a joke. It demeans them. They should be above this. What does anybody care what you or anybody else says about them? They would make it this personal and make it a mission to go after you. Here's the other thing I want to say. I don't know anyone else other than John and Eric, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, I'm telling you the truth, who advocates on the behalf of cops more than you two. You do more in my opinion, at least on social media and getting the word out and defending cops. And it's clear that we have no problem talking about when cops screw up. But you guys do more to support the members of the NYPD than most of the unions do. So I don't know why there's this hatred, because when I hear all of this stuff, if I were on the job, I'd be like, wow, these guys are great. I want to meet them. I want to hang out with them. I want to say thank you. And I know that that's an element on this podcast. You could read from the comments. A lot of people appreciate what you do, but I don't know why the chiefs are doing this and making it so personal. And I don't know why he has his cops that are doing it on his behalf. It's a joke to me. I don't know. I don't know anything about his Twitter. I don't follow any of these people, but we know that they've been playing with the numbers. This is like, I did a video on Eric Adams where he had the nerve, after Detective Jonathan Diller was killed, he had the nerve to stand at the podium during a press conference and say, this guy is back out on the street 1 year after he has a gun. We don't have a crime problem. We have a recidivist problem. How can you say we don't have a crime problem when you're doing a press conference where a cop just got killed? And it's the same issue here. How can you say crime is down when it is so obvious that it isn't? It's not like the statistics can lie. They can tweak it in such a way, with pie charts and all that other stuff. But it just blows my mind that they think they could say this stuff when it obviously isn't true. Keep in mind, there's like 500,000 people that left New York. So that alone,
and the most amount of cops in NYPD history have left or vested, have resigned or vested under this administration in the last, the most amount in NYPD history. But Paul, you didn't answer one question. Hashtags. Should he be allowed to do it? Should he be allowed to utilize hashtags that we don't know the meaning to? And is that professional in your opinion?
No, it's not professional. And if he does it on his personal account, I don't have a problem with it. I'm not for censorship. If he's doing it as the chief
government
of patrol,
account. It's a government account. ADW, BMS.
Of course you shouldn't do it. But that's just one small question about this specific issue. I'm going bigger picture here, saying I don't even know why he's addressing you guys. This is stupid. He's running the city. I don't know why he has to stoop to a level like this.
Clearly doesn't have the leadership abilities, and he's mentally conflicted, and I honestly think they should be at this point. It's been a year of constant attacks by these people, by them paying people. At this point, I really think they should be removed from the New York City Police Department. They obviously don't have the mental capability to handle pressure. They attack reporters, they attack podcasts, they attack any criticism of them, other than the people that are destroying New York City, other than the criminals, other than the anarchists. They don't go after them on social media. They go after opinions that matter. Like that's right. What they go after free speech. I'm saying right now, John Shell should be removed. So should Kaz Daughtry. But Kaz Daughtry is going to be the police commissioner, and John Shell is going to be the chief of department, because that's Eric Adams' administration.
Paul, thank you so much for complimenting the stuff that me and John do. We appreciate it. We're very happy to do it. We love it. We listen. These little the gifts that we got today from some of our friends and listeners on the podcast here, we really appreciate it. I mean, that's the only money that we get for this podcast. We do this and also some very little advertisement. But we do this because we care. We care about the cops, and we could have went off into bliss and into other things, and we enjoy it. Believe this is our path to help the cops. We support the rank and file. And what's interesting about this also, we said that, he's responding to us, but he's actually not responding to us. John Shell and Kaz Daughtry have taken upon themselves to attack us because we're giving our criticism. They should not even respond. If they want to listen to it or not listen to it, that's their decision. Our satirical memes have been around forever. There is supposed to be critique on appointed political positions of higher upper echelon of law enforcement agencies. They're supposed to be critiqued by the public. We are members of the public. There's going to be a critique by mainstream media. They'll be critiqued by us, but they have a problem with it because there's two retired lieutenants. And instead of just listening to it or not listening to it, they've taken the position to attack us through just complete unprofessionalism. I think they're completely unhinged. And I think at this point, first of all, it's completely unprofessional on a public account from the New York City Police Department on behalf of a law enforcement agency, most iconic in the entire world, that you're actually making hashtags that the public doesn't even know what it means. That's completely unprofessional. It's supposed to be transparent. We talk about transparency. That's not transparent. Now they have to figure out how to come up with a different name, because eventually there'll be question about it, of what those hashtags actually mean. It's completely unprofessional. We know it's going to be a complete lie. I'm sure they probably figured out how to transition, Eric Dimwit into something else, or building maintenance section to something else. It's just completely unprofessional. We don't take it personal. If you want to challenge the media and challenge narrative, believing it's false and misinformation, you challenge it with factual data. Just in the same response that John and I did on a prior podcast on Friday, which was called Racist Memes, and we responded to the racist attacks with factual information and actually ping-ponging it back, but in a stoic and professional manner. We're in retirement. We don't have to be stoic and professional, but we choose to be, because that's who we are. That's who we were on the job, and that's who we continue to be. We are the same people in the locker room as the same people on camera, and they are not. It's completely unprofessional. At this point, I think that his tweets, including Kaz Daughtry, warrant a psychiatric evaluation to determine suitability and if they're fit for duty to continue in their capacity as law enforcement, especially in leadership position. I think that they should actually be terminated for their actions. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. John Shell was already involved in a very controversial incident in 2008 where he took the life of another. And in his story, he said it was accidental discharge. And according to a detective in a great article, I would like to read it right now. Hold on one second.
So the guy died that he shot?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
But I just want to clarify something that Eric said. I take this very personally. I take everything very personally. Calling myself a racist, telling people you wish death upon me, sending a mobster to threaten me, threatening my children. I take this all very personally. I don't care. I'm not flustered by it. But I take this all very personally, and so should you, Eric. I don't not take this personally. And we've spoken about that before. I'm like, I take this very, very personally. They've wished death upon me and my family. They've wished death upon you and your family. These are unhinged people. These are people that do not deserve to wear a badge and a gun. I'm sorry. Like, I just cannot. I am not taking this personally. I
don't take it personally because I won't give them the right or the satisfaction to actually say they take it personal. But I do take it serious, and I'm not going to turn my back, because I do think that they're a real threat. I do think that they would try to put physical harm to us if they could, not by their own hands, by some other hands. And that's why they're out there creating this political violence towards our podcast about racist memes. So I will protect my family by all means. I don't know what you think that means, John Shell and Kaz Daughtry, but same thing for John. I will protect my family by any means necessary. I'm not threatening violence, but I will protect my family. I do think they're unhinged. I don't think they should have a badge and gun. But there was an article. So keep in mind, this is 2022. The actual shooting was in 2008, where John Shell took the life of another. And this was by an article from a paper called The Daily Beast. The title was "Star Cop Killed a Black Man. Then Came Another Tragic Twist." And here's a little excerpt from the article. What you have somebody who's a killer, who has rose sick in the ranks of the New York City Police Department to where he's a chief. He's 2 steps away from being a 3-star chief and possibly chief of detectives, said Baeza. Shell was never charged with a crime. So you're going to ask yourself, who's Baeza? I believe in the truth. Retired NYPD sex crimes detective John Baeza, one of the expert witnesses who reconstructed the shooting for the civil trial, told the Daily Beast the ex-cop still often thinks about his findings, shaken by what he believes is a lack of accountability for Shell. During a 5-week trial, witnesses and testimony from the medical examiner convinced the jury that the preponderance of evidence showed Shell did not shoot his gun by accident. Should this be a person who is the chief of patrol of the New York City Police Department? Now, the best prediction of the future is a reflection of the past. So to me, that's a reflection that John Shell and Kaz Daughtry are completely unhinged. And let's make no mistake about it, Internal Affairs has done nothing about it. Our families were threatened. You know what, John? The more you make me think about it, you know what? Maybe I should take it personal, because they personalized it when they went after their families. And you know what? I will do everything in my power to protect them. And so will John. We will not be scared. We will not back down. We will stand up. But at the same token, my eyes are open and my head is on a swivel because I think that you're capable of anything. You obviously capable of lying, how you put the death of another. And John and I both heard rumors that you actually brag about it. So this is the type of people that we're dealing with. So sure, they are a threat. And we will be aware. I will always be aware of my situational awareness. And so will John. And if I have John's back, I have Paul, I have your back. If they need it, I will be there for them at any time. And if you want us to come into New York City to have a meeting, you want to do a podcast there, sure enough, we can film it. You would have to pay for it. You'll have to pay for expenses. But if you want to do a podcast at One Police Plaza, film it, sure. I'll have a lot of cameras so you don't flake us, but you'll have to pay us for it.
So Paul, I'm going to read out Sam Antar's tweet to the Chief of Patrol, and let's get your thoughts on it. Hello, NYPD Chief of Patrol, John Schell. You omitted several facts in your timeline. New York City Mayor Eric Adams took office in 22, and since then, our city has become less safe from violent crime. While I agree with your points about bail reform, raise the age, and other contributing factors, your argument loses credibility when you omit key facts about current levels of crime in New York City. Your omissions make you look like a shill for New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Violent major felonies, 2024 versus 2023, up 4.3%. Violent major felonies, 2024 versus 2021, up 32.3% during Eric Adams' tenure as mayor. Violent major felonies, 2024 versus 2019, up 33.4% since the year before the pandemic, bail reform, and discovery reform. So clearly, this data, by the way, that Sam's using comes directly from the NYPD's own data, and crime has been up for 3 years under Eric Adams. Currently, as it sits, year to date, crime's down about 2%, I believe. Could be wrong, could be even 4. I don't remember what it is, but overall, violent major crime's up 32%, and overall crime is still up in New York City every year of Eric Adams being in office. I get what you're saying. Everyone did it, so that doesn't make it right. Should he be allowed to misrepresent crime statistics to the public?
No, of course not. Of course not. And if they're threatening you in this manner, that's aggravated harassment. They should be collared because they know that if cops do it, they're going to get arrested. They're going to lose their job. They shouldn't be immune. I'm just saying that it's surprising to me that it would get to a point where they would make it so personal and feel so threatening. They're giving you more exposure. They're helping the podcast. Like we talked about the show that I was talking about, where any news is good news, even if it's bad, because it creates a stir, and your podcast and it's great. I'm happy to see it grow. But if I were them, and I think you would feel the same way, you have to ignore this stuff. You're going to have critics. They're lying. They're threatening you. That's a crime if they're doing it, the way that it's being done, aggravated harassment, right? Using, I guess, today it would be on the internet. But if they're threatening your family and stuff, come on. How can anyone make an excuse for that? And as far as lying about the statistics, when I say that everyone does it, I don't mean that. I don't mean that you're lying about a CompStat sheet. I'm just saying if you had, I used to fight all the time with PDU when they would say it's not a robbery. And I would say, I would have to take out the penal law and say, look, it's a robbery. I know the CO doesn't want to eat another robbery number, but I'm not going to lie. So there was always resistance to telling the truth because they were always concerned about the numbers. But if the numbers are black and white and this guy's lying, then he's not very intelligent.
Paul, I was harassed on a daily basis by Cop Watch for years. They would put pictures of me, videos of me, call me criminal. They would put wanted posters. They tried to entice people to create violence towards me on a daily basis. The police department never stood up. I never had John Schell as a chief challenge that narrative. I never had any one of the chiefs ever stand up and attack them. Not once did they ever come to my defense. And never did I do it myself. I never responded. I still don't respond. I wasn't going to give them the benefit. I didn't respond to them ever. And what would happen to me if I did respond? What do you think would happen to me if I did respond in the same manner that John Schell's respond to us?
Well, we know the law is not applied equally. You'd be up Schitt's Creek.
You'd be suspended.
But they're allowed to do it. That's my point. It's And any cop that, I don't know how domestic people that get jammed up domestically, how that occurs today, but I'm sure that there's in any situation where cops get jammed up, I'm sure that, well, look, he threatened me, and next thing you know, the guy's modified because he sent me this text message, or he put this, he put a picture of me on here or whatever. So we know that it's not applied equally. And I would say that if it were me and he was threatening my family, I'd be calling other agencies.
Listen, before I cut you guys off, are you guys anybody in a rush? We got about 400 people in here. I got a couple more topics. I think we should
let it ride, let it rock, let it ride. Let's do it.
I'm good. I'm good.
All right,
we got 2 listeners right here. No.
So, all right. So, for those of you, we got about 400 people in here. If you're on Twitter, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble, please do us a favor, hit the like button, share it out. If you're on wherever else you're listening to, please hit the like button, share it out. We appreciate it. Get more listeners up there, and it brings us up to the top of the algorithm, helps to get more people in, and bumps the podcast up. So we appreciate that. But yeah, I've been reading a lot about great leaders. So I've been reading a lot about Pericles. Pericles, he was, I forget, I think like 482 BC or whatever. But what he did is he had advisors, all of his advisors, he handpicked. And he handpicked the advisors that he knew would go against what he believed. And he did that to sharpen his argument. So I've said it time and time again. I think that we're the best friends that you could have in the NYPD, because we're giving you our honest opinion, and it's in complete opposition to what you're saying. I actually, I'm going to bring in that video about the yes men, and then let's get your thoughts on it. I posted a video the other day about yes men. And so what I thought was very funny about that, I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Because what they were saying is that, well, Pericles has these people. He has these people in his corner that he knows are going to disagree with him, and he's not necessarily going to take their advice. He may, if they really snag him on something, and he's like, oh, wow, they're right. But it really was more to sharpen his argument, to make sure that his argument was actually the correct one. The other thing about him is he allowed people to make fun of him. And the other leaders that did that too, they didn't allow their generals and their lieutenants, their capos or whatever, to make fun of them. But they allowed the rank and file to make fun of them. And that's something you're not seeing today. That's another thing that, like, they're combing our social media to make sure that the rank and file are talking about them. I think it's complete weakness. Julius Caesar was rumored to have a homosexual affair with some other king. Right. And Julius Caesar was bisexual. Right. So he denied that he had the affair with the other king. But when his men used to march, they used to sing about him having this affair with this other king, having this sexual romp with this other king. And he let them do it. Same for Napoleon. Napoleon let all his men make fun of him. And the thing with all three of those leaders is that, and of course, they're some of the greatest leaders in the world. The thing with all three of them is they allowed political debate within their inner circle, but then they allowed the men and women, the rank and file, to actually make fun of them, which I thought was, when you read it, it's like, wow, that actually is a true leader, because it makes a ton of sense. Like, before I play the video, can I just get your thoughts, Paul? How many times as a supervisor did you hear that your guys were making fun of you or they were talking smack about you? And did you actually even address it?
Dude, this is amazing that you asked this question. I work with great cops. When I was a sergeant in the 7th Precinct, we were best friends. We laughed our ass off, and it was, cop humor going back and forth. They'd break my balls every day. I would do it to them. I got pulled into the ICO's office. My captain told me the same thing, that my guys don't respect me, that I'm too close with the cops, that I've become a laughing stock. Meanwhile, When I would go to the trade center for a detail and it's supposed to be 1 in 8, I'd have 20 people lined up to get on my roster. Not because I was great, but because I was one of them. I never thought of a rank separating you. I'm always a cop, right? It doesn't matter how much you ascend. And they always used to make fun of me, and I would give it right back to them. And we had a good time. The main thing was be safe, get the job done, and have fun while you do it. And there were times I didn't even want to take off work because I would miss hanging out with the guys. And if you asked any of the guys that I work with, and I can show you some funny videotapes, we had fun. We had a blast. So for this, I agree 1,000%. It brings you to a certain level where if the shit hits the fan, yes, you have to listen to me, right? Because technically you're their supervisor. But 8.5 hours a day for how many years? That doesn't often happen. And I remember, like it was yesterday, sitting in the van, just going back and forth, choking on each other. It was great. It's what I miss most. So yeah, I've been told that a lot. And as far as surrounding yourself with people who, aren't yes men, I think it keeps you sharp and stronger. It allows you to see a bigger picture. And we all know that people surround themselves, the weak leaders surround themselves only with people who agree with them. And that keeps them weak. Debate makes you stronger. And I welcome that all the time. I love hearing the other point of view. And that's what we would do as a cop, right? Any job, especially domestic. I would say to the husband, before I go talk to her, tell me what she's going to say. And then if I saw the wife, I would say the same thing, because you have to get both sides. So surrounding yourself with people who are only telling you one side about anything keeps you weak, and only weak people do it.
Well, I actually think if they make fun of you, they actually respect you. It's funny, John Shelkaz's daughter, I just want to let you know, my cops used to make memes about me all the time. We used to have threads, like WhatsApp threads between us where we would communicate about stuff for work. And they would put memes about me all the time. I remember one time we had a special operations office in the basement of PSA 7. And sometimes you're working around the clock. We had a couple of gun calls. We're exhausted. And I was literally sitting there on the computer doing paper. And I never forget, like, I fell asleep, basically my head right on the computer while I was doing it. I was just so tired, and they had these memes. A meme of me, it was a big giant eggplant in my mouth. We know what it was assimilating, right? And the meme was sent all around, and they made memes about me all the time. I set up the supervisor's dinner. Then it was too expensive. They would make memes saying that I'm one of a grand larceny, making fun of me. Anytime, if I did anything, they would make a meme about, when I was making arrests, they would put, put me in outfits like superheroes, they would do it all. It was hysterical. I knew that times, I would walk into the office and I knew that they were just talking about me, making fun of me. I didn't care. It's not, should I walk out now or are we good? And that's how you have to be. If they laugh about you, they actually respect you and they actually care about you. And I think you have to be able to take it. That's, I never understood that. If someone, I had bosses in the past that they would be bothered. They'd be like, "Oh, I heard this one's talking about me." Or that was something. So what? Who cares? They're supposed to. They have to vent. It's natural. I never cared. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, no, dude. When you're in a small unit, it's a family. It really was. And exactly. I worked in
it's a family,
different details.
John knows it's a family. I know, it. We all worked on teams. You're a family, and you're right, and I agree. You're a cop. You're a cop that leads other cops, and that's why I used to tell people sometimes they get promoted, like, "Oh, I'm not a cop anymore." What do you mean? "Oh, I'm a sergeant." I said, No. You're a cop that leads other cops. That's what you are.
Right.
So yeah, and then like the other thing is like, you hear cops, like if you're on a unit or a team, it's close knit, but you hear like the cops on patrol or whatever talking smack about you too. I'm not addressing that. I could care less. Like I would take the information and laugh. I'm like, that's all right. So the guy don't like me. What am I supposed to do? Oh, the other thing about Julius Caesar is he said something that I've said, you said, Eric said, like we've all said this, and I hung my hat on this my whole supervisor career, and I think you did, both of you did as well. As I said, I'll never ask someone to do something that I wouldn't do. And that was the same thing for Julius Caesar. I will never ask someone to do something I haven't done or I won't do. and I hung my hat on it. And I think that's why I received a lot of respect as a supervisor for my men and women. But that was true with Julius Caesar. When I looked at Stalin and Hitler, right? Stalin and Hitler only had people around them that agreed with everything they said. They didn't have any debate. There was no debate. If you disagreed with Stalin, you were dead. If you told him where he was failing or they failed because he was wrong, you were dead. And obviously the quality of his advisement was in the garbage. And you see how both of their empires ended up, right? So I think it's true. If I have to give a kudos to anything on this administration, and I even think it's a lot of what they do out publicly is still gaslighting, I will say it does appear, though, that they are out there. It appears that way. They make it appear that way. I don't believe necessarily that's a true statement, but I think if I could say anything that I see positive about them, even though is Kaz Daughtry a civilian? Should he be out on the street? That's a question. I say no, not as a civilian, but as a uniform. But if you're a uniform chief, I think you should be out there in some aspect with your men and your women. And I think, like, if I have to give them a kudos on anything, I'll say it appears that way. But when I deep down into it, I don't believe that they are actually out there and facing the same pressures and doing exactly what the rank and file are doing.
Absolutely. Lead from the front, not in the gear in the rear of the gear. You should absolutely lead from the front. Their boots should be on the ground, also leading from the front, doing the taking the lead, taking the charge. I say not in the middle, lead from the front. So with that being said, let's get further into it. Let's get into this video right here.
Yeah, let's play the video.
Inner circle of many a question relating sort of like to the inner circle of many of these leaders, including Pericles. How important do you think for many of these leaders, for example, including Napoleon with his marshals, was having a relationship with a close group of people he could trust and who he could rely on? And how defining was that to their success and eventually their legend?
I'm so pleased you asked me that question, not least because my present book that I'm writing is called Napoleon and His Marshals. So it's obviously something that I'm thinking a lot about at the moment. And yes, having for Pericles, having people around him like Anaxagoras and Phidias and Aspasia and so on, many others, of course, was a enormous help, because what great leaders need is people that they can bounce ideas off. When they tend to go wrong, and we'll see this a great deal as well, is when they just get yes men. That's always a bad thing. You don't want too many people around you who are dependent solely on you for their jobs, because they tend to wind up turning into sycophants. You want people who you've known for a long time, who are genuinely friendly, who've come up with you, and who you know are going to tell you the truth. That's not necessarily that you automatically do whatever they say. Part of being a leader is not doing what your friends suggest on occasion, but you need to have objective analysis given to you. So when, in the case of Stalin, for example, he winds up killing a large number of the people in his own cohort, the quality of the advice that he gets is inevitably much less. Pericles was somebody who, and you get this with Winston Churchill as well, who actually appointed no men. He appointed people who he knew would disagree with him, because he knew that it would sharpen his arguments. And when you have internally the right arguments, you can then go out into the press and into politics, into Parliament, and put those arguments with even greater strength, because you know that they've been tested. So this is an essential. It's a very good question that you asked, because it's an essential.
So what do you think? Are we actually in opposition of John Shell? Should they be coming at us, or should they be looking at the opposition as a good thing and take free point of note from it?
Well, just like we've been saying, we are a force from outside to help within. The voice that we have actually helps them, and they should actually utilize that to propel their message and say, well, this is the information that's been put out there from what they said. You know what? We agree, and this is how we're going to move forward and change it, or we're going to combat it with this issue. absolutely, this is what they should be hearing, this opposition, and actually counter it intelligently, or just laugh at the satirical memes. They should not respond to. They should just laugh at it and find those humorous and say, well, they should actually be laughing themselves and just put, everything about, hey, thank you to the Finest Unfiltered. You know what? They keep us going, or you know what, we appreciate the humor for the day, but acknowledge it in a humorous way and know that it's to make the leadership better, not to attack them personally. But unfortunately, they let their egos over everything, and egos overshadow their ability to actually be.
Eric, you muted yourself.
I just muted myself by accident. That's why I believe that there needs to be some type of psychiatric evaluation, because in this leadership position, especially with the years experience that they have, the fact that they can't take it humorously really questions their psychiatric ability.
I would say that that's a great video, by the way, John. I'm glad you found that. Surrounding yourself with people that don't agree with you not only makes you sharp, like the video said, but it's not only applied to advisors. I feel like a good friend or a good partner would not always agree with you and say, listen, I'm going to tell you when you're wrong. One of the things my partner Kenny would always tell me is, Paulie, I'm going to hit you hard with the next thing I'm going to tell you. And he would tell me things where I was going wrong that I really didn't want to hear. What good is surrounding yourself with people that only tell you the stuff that you want to hear? It's like you could have the same conversation with the person in the mirror. You need people to be objective and to tell you when you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing. And that can build a friendship a long way. It also works in a marriage, I would say, where, the husband or the wife has a bad day at work. And in the most delicate way, you could say, maybe you were wrong, in this particular, I love you, I have your back, but I don't really agree with that. If they ask your opinion, but I think it works with partners down all the way into the patrol car. I think it works with friendship. And I think that, it could work in any relationship. I mean, I'm friends with people 40, 50 years. We fight on a lot of stuff. And it's not that fighting makes you stronger and makes you healthy, but always hearing the other point of view does make you reassess. If you come to the same conclusion, then you say, all right, well, we agree to disagree. But surrounding yourself with people who only see it your way is stupid. It's weak.
Paul, we do it even just on this podcast. John and I speak all day about, hey, what show should we do? And we tell each other all the time. I'll say, you know what? I got this title. And then John would, it's stupid, bro. Or John will do something like, nah, I don't like that. We tell each other the truth. What's that?
Said, don't lie. I never do
that. Yeah. It's funny because, even my wife was saying, we were talking about getting what shirts we're going to get for the podcast. And she's like, I'm going to get with John, I have to disagree with that, Eric. We disagree all the time, but it's funny. We got to tell each other the truth. You're right. Don't you want people to be honest with you? I used to tell my guys, listen, if I come into work and if I don't look good that day, tell me. Like if I got a stupid haircut, tell me. I say it sometimes I kid around. When you see a girl go out with a bunch of her friends and she's wearing something like listen, that dress is horrible for that girl. Maybe her body's not conducive to that dress, and they let her go out. Her makeup didn't look good. She just doesn't look good. I would always kid around that girl clearly has no friends. Because if you had real friends, they would tell you listen, you don't look good. How you going like that? That's what real friends like. No, you don't look good. Yeah, it goes a long way in friendship.
No, yeah, listen, the truth is, your truth is it's a terrible thing to say it. I mean, look, I think Jordan Peterson said, if you tell the truth, it'll be the adventure of your life. And if you don't believe me, try telling the truth and see what happens. And I mean, and that's kind of like what we all been doing. But I always appreciate it. And Eric does too. We appreciate the opposition, whether it's internally or externally. And Paul, honestly, that's why we love having you on here. And we love that Ron Lason's on here too, is because you guys give us a totally different perspective of what we don't, we're coming in from a different things. And even Ron, I think he had said to me one time, he's like, John, you were never an executive. And it's true. How could I have the inner knowledge and the internal workings of the pressures faced by an NYPD executive and yet be so critical of them? I mean, I could still be critical, obviously, from the outside, the same way a member of the public, and I think a little bit more informed than a regular member of the public would be against a police officer on the street. But I mean, that's where my critique comes from of the executive ranks of the NYPD. But it's good. And what does that do? That sharpens my argument, because it's like things I never thought of, and I think that's what happens with all of us, And I never understood, like, if like I think the biggest argument about this podcast is that, like, people come after us and say, we want to take Eric Adams down. We want to see this administration fail. And it couldn't be further from the truth. I don't want any of those things. I have, although I take everything very personally, I have no hate for any of these people. I don't. I actually pray for them. I go to church on Sunday. I pray for them. When I wake up in the morning, I pray for them. When I go to night, I pray for everybody. I pray for the people that support me. I pray for the people that don't. And it's like, it really just comes to the point of, you just don't want to hear the opposite opinion, which is insane. And what you're going to see here in the next tweet that I bring up, what's on the screen right now, is friends don't let friends make awkward tweets. Especially either after they're having a really good time at the Salty Dog. So this was we made in response to John Shell's tweets with his hashtags, right? So I mean, when you're putting BMS, when you're putting hashtag Eric's a dimwit, like, things of that nature. I mean, clearly his tweets are completely unhinged. But I think what you're gonna see is he actually starts to take some advice from Sam Antar in the next tweet that I get into. But what are your thoughts about friends don't make friends?
That's what I always say. Listen, your real friend, I want the real friends. I want the guys that actually have the balls to tell me, like, dude, if I go out and I look stupid, like, dude, you look stupid. Or if I say something that's wrong, that's why I appreciate that, when Ron comes on here, even today, I had a rectify what I'm saying about when it comes to emotional intelligence. He stands up to us. He tells us what, if he's in agreement with us or disagreements. Plenty of times we've spoke to Ron offline, and we spoke to him on X basis, and we had disagreements that, debates, and really sticking to our arguments. That's a real friend. That's why I consider Ron a real friend. He'll tell us, you know what? He's told me before in the past, I didn't like what John said, or this and that. And John responded, advice, and that's the way it should be. That's healthy. Paul, the three of us talk all the time. Every time he's like, I don't agree with that. I don't like that, or what a video you're putting in. That's the truth. We speak to each other. John tells me all the time, I don't like that. Or I tell him, I don't like that either. Even though I'm a pretty easygoing person, I will say I'm pretty easygoing. Not much bother. Most things I'm like, okay, no problem. But if there's really something I think I don't like, I'll say it. And that's the way it has to be. You have to. Yeah. I think that's a great point by Jordan Peterson, right? Speaking the truth, you'll go on adventure. Because how many people actually tell you the truth? I would question sometimes too. Like, most of my guys were pretty stand up, but sometimes you get people new to the unit. And I know they would kind of like laugh at every little thing I'd say, or say no problem. And I would pull them aside, like, dude, you don't have to laugh at everything I say. If I make a joke and it's not funny, you could abuse me too. My God, plenty of times, we would laugh, but sometimes, we all say stupid things like, boss, that wasn't funny. And that is cool. That's the way it should be.
Right. I agree 100%. It made the day a lot better to be able to go back and forth with each other. Rank meant nothing. It didn't matter what rank I was. I was friendly. I mean, we went away together. We were in each other's wedding parties. It was such a great connection. I miss those guys. I love them. And I know you know who I'm talking about if you're watching. I wish I can go back to those times because of the fun that we had. We really did have a good day at work, and it was because we were all equal. And we would all rank on each other, for lack of a better term, like we were, like we were teenagers again, and made it for a much better experience.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, for our friends and listeners on the podcast, thank you so much for staying with us. We're almost 2.5 hours into it. So at this point, please, if you could, like it, reset it, repost us out there. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for staying with us.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to get up Sam Antar's other tweet about this. No, I'm sorry. This is NYPD Chief of Patrol's other tweet. Let me bring that up to the stage. All right. So Chief of Patrol responds to Sam Antar, and this is what he says. Okay, I will bite on this one. I'm told I omitted some facts. So let's see. 1, on the bottom of the post, I said our team inherited, etc. I do have to specify everyone. Do I have to specify everyone by name? ? I think we all know who the team is at this point. Check. 2, I'm glad we agree on the causes of why the crime numbers reset to the new levels. This started in the end of 2021. Our team inherited these laws and policies in 22 when we were completely out of COVID. Check. 3, according to your own numbers, violent felonies, and they're not his own numbers, these are the NYPD's own numbers. Violent felonies rose from 2020 to 21, not to mention 1,500 plus shooting incidents. This team was not in place for 2021. Different administration and team. Check. 4, what did I explain wrong about the current level of crime? Crime is down overall 2.5% for the year and 7% for the month. See attached. Our cops are working hard for the city. Those 1,500 plus shootings from 2021, our team has drastically reduced them, including homicides, on pace for another reduction and a continued 3-year decline, which again, he lies. It's not on a 3-year decline. When he talks about shooting and homicides, yes, overall violent crime is up over 32%. And he's still, but he kind of is admitting it here. And he says, lastly, I see no one ever discussed the 2-year, 8-month reduction in shooting incidents, victims, and murders. If we are going to discuss the violent felonies, we can't leave this out. I hope this brings some clarity and gets some of my credibility back, or we're going to have to agree to disagree. Have a good night, everyone. So now he's trying to backpedal while still lying. And I honestly, I find it pathetic at this point. Again, it's consistently hiding behind the hard work of the men and women of the New York City Police Department. You cannot give him, Kaz Daughtry, or the fact that Kaz Daughtry, who's the real police commissioner, by the way, or give any criticism to Ed Caban, who's nowhere to be found. He's literally has about as much power as the King of England does at this point. He just sits there up on the throne, does absolutely nothing, no press conferences, doesn't talk about anything. You cannot give them criticism without them hiding behind the rank and file. And have they done good work in reducing the shootings? Yes, but I do believe it's temporary, and I believe a lot of it has to do with luck more than anything they've put into place.
I gotta laugh. Chris Arnold put the chief suffers from liabilities. That's pretty funny. But like Paul, it's to me this is an admission that crime is actually up. And he's trying to weasel his way out of it and manipulate everything. And this is my point to it. This is what they're trying to say. If it's now, let's rhetorically speak. Let's say it's January 2024, and I go, you know what? Here's my resolution. I gained 100 pounds this year, and then by March I lose 20 pounds. Now, if I go and tell the public, hey, listen, I got great news. I lost 20 pounds. I'm 20 pounds lighter. Did I lose 20 pounds? I actually gained 80 pounds, right?
Right.
But that's what they're doing with the public. Crime is up 75%. It goes down 7% that week. They tell everybody crime is down 7%. Is it really down 7%? No. Crime is actually up 68%. And that's what they're doing. They're manipulating numbers, and that's why it's gaslighting.
It's the same thing that they're doing with inflation. When they say inflation is down, inflation is down. It's down to 3%. Number one, down from where? It's down from your high of 9.1%. And when you say it's down 3%, you're comparing, let's say, August of 04 to August of August of 24 to August of 23. Yeah, it's down to 3% this year, but last August it was up 6%. So they're saying, oh, we cut the rate of inflation in half from 6 to 3. What they're really saying is prices are up 9% when you go back 2 years. So they could split hairs and, I mean, listen, we could do it with pie charts. We could do it with any type of graph. But the facts are the facts. I don't know why they would continue to lie about this. If you're high and you're coming down, which is a good thing, I don't know if you use this term, the numbers are moving in the right direction. We used to hear that a lot. Everything is going down. Everything's going down. And you can only do what's in front of you. You can't worry about what happened 2 or 3 years ago. And hopefully you continue that they go down. But to lie and say crime is down, yeah, well, what are you looking at? Are you looking at 28 days, 7 days? You're comparing it to this year, 3 years back. You know, it's all BS. You know.
Yeah, and so what I got up on the screen now is this is Sal Greco's Twitter, and he posted this, and you know what you see is NYPD Chief of Patrol followed him, but he actually didn't follow him. What he does, and what him and Kaz, and you've seen Kaz retweet me on things where I directly criticize him at, and it wasn't done to be funny or anything. So constantly, what they're doing is they're scrolling on their phone, and by accident, he follows Sal Greco, and then he immediately unfollows him. And that's what you see, right? You'll see retweets. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be aware of what their critics are saying. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is they shouldn't take it the way that they do.
I agree.
Take it as a complete, utter. It's insane to really like. It's not something I would be proud of. It doesn't show leadership to attack anybody in that manner or to run smear campaigns, and that's constantly what they see. There's one more thing I think we should get into. I think we're almost at like 2.5 hours now. There was a New York Post article yesterday, and I just want to put it into context for everyone. I think we put the video on this podcast. I'm not sure that we did, but I think we need to play it again for everyone. And before I play the video, it's someone in a stolen van, and the cops are around there. And the New York Post article, I hate the title of it. Wild video shows NYPD helplessly trying to stop New York City van thief from smashing into cars.
We did play it. Yeah.
What is it?
No, we did play it, which is good. We should play it again. We did.
All right. Yeah. So we'll play this again. But, you know, they quoted me in this article, and, you know, the Post was asking, like, well, it looks like the cops aren't doing anything. And I'm like, the cops are doing more than they should be doing, in my opinion, because it literally, I don't know what they could do at this point. And I put this video out and I put the quote out, and then Edwin Raymond had said, well, they can't shoot. You know that's not deadly physical force. So, guys, I want to bring up the video and then just get your opinion. What do you think about how the cops handled it? And is this deadly physical force? Yes or no? Or do the cops reasonably have the ability to fear for their lives? Hold on. I got to bring this up a different way. Eric, why don't you bring it up? Why don't you start talking about it now, since you already seen the video? Like, what do you think how the cops handled it, and do you think that they had a reasonably could reasonably articulate fear of death in this situation for themselves or another?
Yeah, we spoke about it in prior podcasts. Absolutely, a vehicle is absolutely that. It's a fantastic tool. It's a fantastic resource, but it's also, most vehicles are about 3,000 to 4,000 pounds. A van is even more. And that's dry, unloaded. You know, we don't know if there's construction stuff inside that van. A construction van, you know, has tools that weigh thousands of pounds, could be extremely deadly in the amount of weight. So absolutely, when you utilize a car improperly, especially in the manner that this video is, it's used as a weapon. It's absolutely deadly, because if that car hits someone that's an unknown pedestrian, hits one of those police officers, it's going to be fatal. Absolutely. I think those police officers did far more than they could. It's a horrible situation. I wouldn't want to be put in that situation. If they did fire a shot based on the optics right now, what's going on in the media, especially the prosecution and persecution of cops throughout this country, especially when it comes to vehicle pursuits, I think these police officers would be losing their own financial freedom, their own civil liability. I think they would potentially lose their own actual freedom and be imprisoned. I think that these police officers are in a horrible situation. For anyone to say that they didn't do anything clearly doesn't understand the volatile situations a police officer faces, and we're never in a situation like that. That is imminent death. The police officers put their hand in the wrong position. I mean, we all know it. Even without being a cop, just feel that when you're next to a car or you walk past a car that's moving real quick, even if that mirror just clips you, the amount of damage that could cause. This is absolutely a deadly encounter and could cause imminent death to those cops or someone that is unknown to what's going on. That's a horrible situation to be put in. Those cops are in a lose-lose situation. There's they're trying to hit it with asps and things like that, and nothing's working because it weighs thousands of pounds and it's being utilized as a weapon. Horrible situation. If they did fire a shot, it's not a wrong thing to do, but with the optics right now, they will be losing their freedom.
Paul, I'm going to play the video and then let's get your thoughts.
Okay.
It's up, right? Is it up on the screen?
Yeah, I see it. It's not playing though.
Okay, I'm going to play it right now. So that was, you know what, the post video actually wasn't good. There was a much longer video that I posted online. But what you see is, right, you see this cop, he's there, he's trying to smash the window, and he's actually trying to hit the guy's hand. And at one point, I think he even touches the van. But you see that the driver in the stolen van, completely not obeying order, throws the car in reverse, right? I think at that point, it shows, you know, this life and death is in the fray right here. All these cops are in danger. So is everyone on New York City streets that day. What are your thoughts about that video, Paul?
Well, what can you do? The guy's in a van. He's going to drive away. He's going to drive away. He should have been, I don't know where the RMP was, but maybe tactically, before you approach something like that, make sure that he's boxed in. Maybe they thought that he was going to comply, and he wasn't going to floor it and push those cars to the side. But I agree with Eric. Well, you know, you shoot, you're screwed. Especially they'll say, "Oh, he was driving away." I don't think there's much you can do. What can you do? He's in a big, heavy machine, and he could easily, you know, you talk about mirrors. He could have run you over. You could have got pinned in between those two cars. At that point, you know, get him down the block or call somebody else. I don't think these cops could have done much.
I tell you what, this video actually doesn't even do justice of how volatile it was. The other video that you had put on, John, had a lot more meat to it and showed a lot more going on. And you could see like how volatile and dangerous it was. It's a horrible situation for the cops. This is such a dangerous situation. All they gotta do is get their hand caught. What are they gonna do? These cops, you're a human being up against a van, which probably weighs about 8,000 pounds. There's people in there. I don't know what's in there. It's a horrible situation. That is absolutely deadly. He pulls in reverse. He just clips somebody or pulls really quick.
Yeah, you lose your legs. Yeah,
exactly. Hits another car, and now we're starting to get shrapnel from stuff coming from car. Things get in your eyes. This is absolutely deadly situation. You know, if things were normal, made common sense, they potentially may have to fire a shot. And I know what Ron Layson put here, according to the NYPD Patrol Guide, absolutely forbids firing your weapon in a vehicle unless deadly physical force other than the vehicle is being used or threatened. That is a true statement according to the NYPD procedure. Just lose-lose situation for our cops and what they're faced with every day. Lose-lose situations where your decision-making just doesn't matter because no matter which way you turn, you're going to lose.
Yeah, I don't know if you were trained this way, Paul, but I know me and Eric were trained this way. We were trained that if we were in an alley and there was absolutely nowhere to go. You was trained the same way? We were in an alley. So picture this. You're in an alley and you're surrounded by walls on both sides of you, and there's no way out, and a car is driving towards you. You are forbidden as a New York City police officer to shoot at the driver or shoot at the vehicle. That's how we were trained. So what Ron's talking about here is, I don't know if you guys remember, about 10 years ago, there was about 10 years ago, there was a ramming attack. Maybe not 10 years ago, maybe like 8 or 7, whatever. There was a guy in Times Square. It was pre them putting the ballards up in Times Square where it would prevent vehicles from getting up on the sidewalk. But he was actually running through people, driving on the sidewalk, running people over, and the cop shot him. I don't know if you guys remember that. And so like technically by the patrol guide, he wasn't allowed to, but he was covered because, I mean, obviously he saved lives, right? He saved tons of lives. He violated the patrol guide, and he did the correct thing, what anyone with common sense would say is correct. So they revised the patrol guide and they say that you can never shoot unless the vehicle's being used as a ramming attack. Right?
Oh, I didn't know that. They changed that?
They changed it. So if the vehicle's being used in a ramming attack, you could shoot. Now, that's so subjective. It's literally subjective at that point. Now, could you articulate that this is being used in a ramming attack? Yeah, but like, what do you could, but who's pulling the trigger at that scenario? I think that they went above and beyond here, being this close to the vehicle, because I really think at this point, death is imminent for them, for anyone on New York City streets. And if this was a different state, if this was Florida, if this is Texas, those cops are shooting you. And honestly, I believe that they're justified, because if you're a reasonable person and you're going to tell me that someone behind a stolen vehicle, you don't know if he's armed, is just going to recklessly slam a few thousand-pound van back and forth with no regard for human life and tell me that I shouldn't reasonably fear for my life or the life of others, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. So the options are limited here. Oh, hit him with the taser. So what happens if they hit him with the taser and he falls off and he drives down the block with his foot on the gas and he kills a little kid?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is a no-win situation. I will say something that I think the public doesn't understand. It's from the footage that I see now that I'm off the job, and I remember being on the job, it's not easy to get somebody out of a car. If they want to lock themselves in, I'm talking, you break the window, you try to pull them out, but in that situation, you have the advantage. You hope they're going to comply. If you mace them, now you're mace. Tasers don't always work, right? It's not always easy like the movies, pulling someone out of a car. It's even more difficult to try to get someone out of a van because they have a height advantage. So now they're actually probably sitting at a higher elevation than you are. So you don't have the ability to just throw them to the floor, because it's almost like you guys are one-on-one. And then a situation like this where the guy's going back and forth, I don't think they could have done anything else. I think if you shoot them, like you said, you're going to get jammed up. They're going to say there was nobody on the street. You knew it was only a stolen car. Was the guy caught? Was the perp apprehended?
I don't even know if the perp is apprehended. That's good. But what I will say this, I was in the Marine Corps, and they had this program, and they still have it. They started out a martial arts training program there, and it was called One Mind, Any Weapon. And the ideology was behind is that any tool, even this cup here, any tool or any resource in and around you can be converted into a weapon. And that's why I say a car is a fantastic resource, but a car could actually be a weapon. So it's funny, all these people that are anti-gun, because they only see a gun or a knife as some type of weapon. If I have a fork, if I have a spoon, if I have a phone, any item that I have can be used as a weapon. That same resource, right? A saw that you use at home for tools, those could be used as a weapon. And that's what has to be understood in our justice system, that yes, this is a car, but the car can be used as a weapon. And right now, that car is a weapon. And yes. I do believe that deadly force at this point is necessary, is justified. But unfortunately, with the politics that we face right now, the police officer who would fire a shot and take someone's life to save others at this point would be the one prosecuted.
Absolutely.
That's sad, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So Irizarry, who's the guy, he was later arrested and slapped with a series of felony charges, including grand larceny, auto, reckless endangerment, and fleeing an officer in a stolen vehicle, according to police. Should have been also resisting arrest, OGA, and all of those other things. My personal opinion is zero. Absolutely zero is going to come out of this. Zero. I don't think this person's going to be held liable. Ron, I agree 100%. He said, even though it's in a violation of the department guidelines in today's environment, you will not only be disciplined, you will also be prosecuted for the violations of the law. 100%. He said exactly, but they would say it is meant in running through a crowd at a parade, not down a sidewalk. And this was just a car attempting to flee, not domestic terrorism.
Right.
So I agree with you 100%, even though it kind of says that, like, if the car is being used as a ramming attack or deadly physical force, that they have no option here. And that's kind of what I was trying to allude to the New York Post. And I'm still not sure that they grabbed everything that I was saying. I'm like, the cops aren't frozen. They're doing what they're trained to do, which is
the most they
they're
can
actually
do.
doing more than that.
Right.
So they quoted me with this. And let me know if you guys agree with this. I said, despite the thief threatening the public and the police's safety, cops would like would have been the ones behind bars if they would have shot the driver or caused an accident by tasing him, John McCarty told the Post. They are so heavily scrutinized, they cannot deploy deadly physical force at the moment, even though they are being presented with deadly physical force by the operator of that vehicle, he said. McCarry added the driver likely had zero concern about injuring the cops or the public because criminal justice reform legislation in New York has removed consequences. What do you
100%. 100%. I agree 100% with what you said.
Exactly. Paul, absolutely, right? Even, you know what, Paul, is interesting, even during your time, right? Even your era, it's you know, even then, I think you might even face some prosecution. So now it's just far worse, persecution.
Yeah. Well, listen, if he's going to do that, you let him go. You get him down the block or you get somebody else to get him. You don't get in the way, right? He's pinned between the car that's still in the street. I don't know what's on the other side of the van, but you'd be crazy to try to intervene physically if you can't, and you can't shoot him, right? Like we all know what would happen. So I think the cops did the most that they can do.
Well, John, I'll say my response right now. It's the same thing that I put on X in response to your quote. Great job. Spot on.
I got to step off 1 second.
Yeah, no problem. Great job. Spot on. Because exactly what you said is exactly what happened. And I can't agree with you more. I don't think there's even more to say. And that everybody knows right now, if you're a cop or you're a civilian, you know right now the state of what's going on for policing. As a police officer, that's a horrible situation that you're summoned to a situation like that. And you're in a lose-lose situation. And they're trying to do what they can with those little tools and little training they have to face an adversary of a car like that. And I agree with Ron Layson. Unfortunately, I think the subjectivity when it comes to a ramming attack would be exactly that. This ideology of some type of jihad, you know, or some type of terrorist attack. I believe that's what they foresee when they think of a ramming attack. And I don't think it's actually transitioned or been translated to an incident just like that, which I do believe that is a potential ramming attack. He or she, whoever's the operator of that vehicle, can ram into someone.
I 100%. I couldn't agree more. Let's do one more video and hit the road. This one I really don't have any context on at all. I could look it up while you guys are talking. Kind of want to wait for Paul to get back in here before we do that. But this comes out from Luis Documents at MFS Guns Hook. Luis has attacked us in this podcast often. He usually puts a crazy spin on anything related to the NYPD, and he's often erased things that debunk the narrative that he's trying to paint, even though he filmed them himself. So he's not, in my opinion, he's not a credible source of information. And it's people like him that, you know, John Shell won't never push back on, you know, but he'll push back on reasonable, sound arguments of people that support the men and women of the people he serves. So it's laughable to me that like nobody goes after them. So this is what Luis writes in this. A video is circulating in Staten Island. The Forgotten Borough has caused outrage in the community over an NYPD that went wrong. A group of officers stopped a man for allegedly trying to pull him out of the vehicle without questioning. The witness argued the vehicle wasn't moving yet and was stationary before officers tried to arrest him with no cause. So what Lewis is claiming here is that, which I'm going to say right now is complete bullshit, is that he's trying to say that the officers pulled this man over for no reason. They didn't question him or let him know any reason why he was being pulled over, and they just attempt to pull him out of the vehicle for absolutely no reason. I mean, I don't think anybody believes this stuff's going on in New York City. Like they're just coming up and kidnapping you out of your car, pulling you over and ripping you out of the window for no reason. I don't think that's happening. So the witnesses argued the vehicle wasn't moving yet and was stationary before officers tried to arrest him with no cause. Quickly, the scene escalated after another officer off camera allegedly physically pushed a family member, which led to a full-on brawl. NYPD officers then began in a frenzy to take the man while one pummels him. A pregnant woman is seen in the video walking towards the man, confused on what's going on, before being grabbed by an officer and assaulted by another female officer. She's quickly tackled to the ground and arrested while an officer sits on her belly. Later, the same officer punches her in the head when she's detained. After one officer yells, "I'll wash you," to the cameraman, threatening to incite more violence against the family. 4 people were arrested. 3 officers were injured. 1 alleges they were kicked in the ribs. So these are the cops in the incident that Luis is saying, beware of these crooks opening doors on people and trying. So he's trying to make the assertion that these 4 cops pulled someone over for no reason. They didn't say a word, and they just went to throw him in handcuffs. Absolutely. I mean, it's really a sick narrative. So I don't know what he's showing here.
What is he doing? No.
Hold on, I'll do that.
You know what's so ridiculous about this? You can put the video up. What's so ridiculous is that the CCRB is going to sink their teeth in, and these cops. I'm just going to let people know before you watch this. These cops did nothing wrong. And if these cops are actually watching this, or anybody knows these cops, you tell them that Eric Dim, the most complaint cops, a great job. It's nice to see that there's some outliers that actually stand up for themselves and actually fight back, and defend themselves and defend the city. Great job. Because this whole narrative is just a complete lie.
Yeah, so Paul, we don't really have the context of this video other than that the person that put this out is claiming that the officers rolled up on the individual that they're arresting, pulled him over, and just immediately went to arrest him without saying anything. And they were just body snatchers. They were just coming to snatch people out of their cars. Do you think that narrative's true before we play the video?
No, I don't think that's true.
You don't think so? They just snatched them up and kidnapped them?
They didn't say anything. They just pulled them over and went right for the arrest.
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
All right, let's play the video and then
wait, hold on, John. Unless they did try to stop them, and maybe they wanted to try to, and they took off, and when they got to the car, they had to rip them out. Maybe that part they left out.
Right.
But
let me just
bullshit.
Let me ask you guys a question. I would say about 90% of the time, when I was arresting someone, we didn't have to tell them what they were being arrested for because it was so obvious, right? It's not like we just go up to you on the street and they're like, whoa, 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 like what happened to you, John, when you were drinking a beer, right? You knew that you were in a stolen car. That's why you tried to drive away. You knew that you just robbed someone. That's why we chased you for 2 or 3 blocks. When you finally get up to this person, usually you don't have to like explain to them. Like when you pull someone over, then it's, you could say, listen, I pulled you over because you ran the stop sign. That's a little bit different. But most of the perps that I locked up, they knew that they were caught. You didn't have to explain to them why you're arresting them.
Yeah. For those of you guys on Twitter, do me a favor. There's about 300 people, over 300 people just on Twitter alone. We have close to 500 people in here now, 450 people, in here now. I just want to experiment. If you could just retweet it, I just want to see, because I really feel like every time I go live or we go live on Twitter, that post itself, the live, actually gets drowned out and doesn't actually get as many views as a regular post. So if you could just retweet for those of you on Twitter, I appreciate it. So we got 400 people on here. We're going to get going very soon because this is probably the longest podcast we ever did. But it's good. Let's play this video and then let's get your thoughts, guys.
Here. What is he doing? No. Yo, back up. No. I'm not doing that. Yo, bro, what the fuck? You can't do that.
Yo, Christian! Oh my God, so dumb with nothing to do. Yo, she's pregnant! She's pregnant! She's pregnant! She's pregnant! She's pregnant! Yo, she's pregnant! She's pregnant! She's pregnant! Yo, she's pregnant! Yo, bro, what the fuck? Yo, she's pregnant! Yo, Christian, don't fucking resist, bro. She's pregnant, bro. That nigga's just scooping away. Back up. She's pregnant, bro. Yo, she's fucking pregnant. That nigga's just scooping away. Don't trust me. Are you a bitch? You fucking Mexican ass bitch. You a bitch. You fucking Mexican. You fucking bitch ass nigga.
Let's call the racist cops.
You fucking stupid ass bitch. Yeah, y'all niggas is bitches. Yeah, you mad because I'm recording you? You mad because you want? Yeah. Look at your eye. Look at your eye. Look at your eye. Look at.
So, what do you guys think about it? Or what do you think about this video?
So, first of all, thank God there's still some outliers left in the New York City Police Department that actually believe in defending themselves, and it's actually correlation defending the city. Thank God. Great job. These cops controlled the scene. They actually had poise and control, aggressive with control. That's important. And if I had $1 for every time somebody said, oh, she's pregnant, she's this, she's that. Well, guess what? If you are pregnant, why are you fighting with the police? There's a lot of narrative and context missing in this, because the narrative that you read earlier was just complete bullshit. Clearly, there was a car stop conducted, or someone took off and they stopped this car. They're wanted for some type of crime. There's a lot of context missing here. We could see the assertiveness of the cops. To me, it's indicative that they're probably wanted for some type of crime. And there was no compliance here. They completely fight with the police. They resisted. Cops did a great job. If the cops had to watch this, hands down, I salute you. You did a great job. I think we give a pretty fair assessment on this podcast. It's not just back the blue. We back what's true. So, Paul, what do you thought?
Play stupid games with stupid prizes. Yeah. Listen, you're pregnant. Like Eric, you said exactly what I was going to say. You're pregnant. What do you have no problem, fighting the cops and this one wrote she's pregnant, but she can throw a roundhouse. It's true, right? I don't know what they were wanting for. I don't know what the details were. It's, you're missing context, but this is today you can fight the police. And you seen even the old lady was filming with her iPhone. But it's great that the cops didn't back down. I'd like to know more about it, what happened, what they were wanted for. But Eric, that's another thing you're right about. She's pregnant. How many times you'd hear, but I can't breathe. Yeah. Or but I didn't do anything, or I'm holding it for someone, or why are you harassing me? Like, yeah, she's pregnant. I agree. You got to treat it differently, but not when she's throwing punches at you. This is ridiculous.
I was just waiting for the one.
It was a little chaos. It was a little chaotic, but you're only getting one side. And have they released the body cam, or has the job talked about this, or is it just this guy on social media?
No, they're too busy looking at my tweets and Eric's tweets and listening to the podcast right now. They haven't really responded to this yet. But I mean, let's just look at the context of it. We don't need, obviously, Luis is out of his mind saying that these guys are body snatchers and just coming out. Hide your wife, hide your kids. They're coming for you. They're snatching everybody out here. That's obviously not. But if you look at it, you could tell what happened here, right? Like the individuals pull over. I don't know who originally pulled them over, but completely uncooperative. And the reason I'm saying that is there's about 12 to 14 cops on the scene here. So that leads me to believe that the officers that originally pulled the vehicle over were called for help. They called for backup. And then the people on the street are actually getting wild. And, it's terrible that you have to be in the situation where you're going to have to place a pregnant woman under arrest, but her own actions dictated that. Yes. So regardless of like what the original scenario was, I'm going to say the same thing, right? Do I think that it was ridiculous for the cops to even be involved? Like if they were walking around checking beach badges, I think it's ridiculous for the cops to be involved in that. If the cops pulled you over for some bullshit, I think it's ridiculous that you're going to get a ticket for. I do. But why are you going to escalate that situation? Why are you going to get crazier? Like what would have happened to me if in a scenario where I was being combative and just didn't take the summons or just let them do what they were going to do? It would have turned out much worse. The scenario would have been much worse. I would have faced serious charges if I even made it out of there at all. And now you have the same scenario here. People just, and it's not just, just comply. No, it's not that at all. You're allowed to use your voice, and you're allowed to address your grievances in public, in social media, and in a court of law. I mean, that's what's great about this country. But clearly you see here, we're missing the context of why the individual is being arrested. But again, it just makes situations worse.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to Laura. She's a great friend to the podcast, listens. She said, Eric and John are great heroes. Follow them and let's unite. Thank you so much, Laura. You're always so kind to us. Too kind. Ron Layson, something obviously preceded because of the amount of cops present. You're absolutely right. That's why I said, to me, it's indicative that there's a crime going on here. There's not just a set of partners doing a car stop. Clearly, to me, it's indicative that they probably wanted for something, and this car stop, the car itself, was part of something bigger that they wanted. Maybe wanted for robbery or something. Who knows? But to me, this is indicative that they wanted for something, and the car stop was based on that, just based on the observations that I made. I would say for that. But like I said, I want to hands down to the cops. They did a good job. They stood their ground. That's what we need. I hope that these cops are not disciplined in any manner. I do fear that they will be subjected by the Civilian Complaint Review Board. They're seething teeth. So to the cops that are out there, if you were involved in this incident, reach out to us at www.thefinestunfiltered.com. If you want to reach out to us with a fake name in case the police department's watching you, you can. If you need any help with your Civilian Complaint Review Board case, we will help you. I'd be glad to help you. Absolutely. Just tell us, we can help you on how to testify to these investigators. Maybe you can tell us about the case even further. The context is missing, and we can help you out. So with that,
So, and I think this is the reason I brought this up. Somebody sent this to me the other day, and I forget where they sent it. So shout out to whoever did that. Apologize. I get a lot of stuff every day. But this really caught my eye because it's something that we've been talking about a lot, of how this so-called police reform or criminal justice reform has really had such a negative effect on New York City. You saw when I sat down with Tremel Thompson, he went right to how does what was the quote that he went after? He went after police work as a contact sport. It doesn't look pretty on camera. And he said, well, how does that correlate when the city's paying out all of this money in lawsuits every year? How does your contact sport work out then? And what I told him is, I said, you're 100% right. It's egregious. And you should be going after corporation counsel, and you should be going after the district attorneys who are declining to prosecute, who are basically just giving money to people who broke the law in New York City, were lawfully arrested. The cops were involved, utilized their training, utilized the law, did everything, and effected a lawful arrest. And the DA then didn't prosecute, and it basically just opened up the NYPD for a lawsuit. And then corporation counsel just continues under the umbrella of, it's cheaper to pay out. And this is what you get here, right? This is what you get. And now you have people who are real anarchists, real in opposition to the NYPD, running around with cops' lawsuit data and trying to pretend it's because the cops are of low integrity, they violate the law, and there's absolutely nothing to be done, and there's nothing happening to NYPD officers. There's no oversight. Now, it may be true when it comes to the case of Jeffrey Madry or Kaz Daughtry or John Schell, but as far as the rank and file goes, this is the most heavily scrutinized profession in the world. So you see this. Beat your case, then www.suenypd.com. If your case was dropped, dismissed, you received an ACD, which is basically, oh, yeah, you're guilty, but we're just going to give you a slap on the hand. Don't get in trouble for 6 months. Or they decline to prosecute, which all of these things fall into the overwhelming majority of dispositions when it comes to arrest in New York City. Eric, what's your thoughts around this?
Frankie197, great comment, brother. You're absolutely right. Law enforcement in the country, the Eastern County, I think you meant country. Law enforcement in the country is under attack. I think, am I right, Frank? I think you meant country. Completely under attack. But what's interesting about law enforcement professions under attack, but it's the police officers individually that are bearing the responsibility and the liability, right? Because if you're involved in an incident and because of the legislation, the case of the arrest that you made gets thrown out and dismissed, you are going to be sued. You're facing civil liability for the legislation that was created by these democratic, progressive, woke ideology. So now the person that you arrested, their case gets dismissed because of the justice system, the woke DAs, and you're facing the liability. You didn't even know what goes down the line. And then you're sued, you fill out your request for legal aid, you're indemnified, but there's a settlement. And now on your public record, on your behalf, there's a settlement, and it gives an appearance for someone like Tremel, who's a complete race baiter, to attack the particular police officer, say, oh, you're not a good police officer. You were sued. This case was settled for $30,000. But yet, did you know that the police officer never had an opportunity to even face it? That this was a case that was thrown out and dismissed in the district attorney's office because of democratic legislation, but yet the police officer is the one that faces the liability.
It always comes down to the cops. You guys make great points. Honestly, I never thought of that. I haven't had many cases DP'd. I guess they wouldn't do it back then, but now it does open you up to civil liability. If your case was so, the DA refused to prosecute because the cop was overzealous and he shouldn't have arrested him anyway. That's how they're going to spin it. It's just another angle to get attacked from, and I could see why cops don't want to make arrests anymore. It's sad, but this is through no fault of the cop. It's not like, well, I hit him, but I should have been justified, or I acted a certain way, but I acted within department guidelines. This is where a cop does everything right, even by the NYPD's standards. And because the people in court who believe this garbage about, criminal justice reform decide not to prosecute, you just opened up the city, but mainly it all comes down to it rests with the cop that did his job and may have had a valid arrest. So that's terrible. Again, I couldn't do it today.
Well, this is part of the defund the movement. This is part of the defund the police movement. This is exactly what this is, because what this does is pit the taxpayer against the rank and file of the NYPD. And this is something, John Schell, that you really should be honing in on, you and Kaz Daughtry, and should be pushing back on. And your illustrious mayor, who supports all of this, by the way, he should be talking about it too. So this is something that pits the taxpayer against the NYPD and furthers the hate of police, because what do they know? Oh my God, we're paying out hundreds of millions of dollars every year for NYPD lawsuits. The cops must be doing something wrong. And then when you really look at it, you're like, oh, wait, no, the cop didn't do anything wrong. They didn't even get found guilty of anything. Just, DA's office is overwhelmed for whatever cause you want, low staffing, whatever you want to say, or the DA's office, the discovery reform laws have caused them to create this. So now we put discovery reform law. This falls on your state legislator and your state assembly, right? Your state senate. They put this discovery law in place, and what does this do? This makes the DA's office drop more cases, dismiss more cases, give ACDs 30-30, or decline to prosecute, right, on cases. And what happens when they do that? You as a taxpayer will be footing the bill for lawsuits. So it's on the voting block. So what they're doing by this whole progressive reform, criminal justice reform legislation is it's just a further attack on the NYPD. It's a subtle attack because they're not saying they're actually doing it, but by doing this, what's happening? The taxpayer now is saying the NYPD is acting improperly. Maybe they need even more police reform.
Hey, Zumba with Lily, thank you so much for being a friend and listening to the podcast. She's asking, are you guys going live this week, like Thursday and Friday, because of holiday? And what about next Monday? Lily, we'll be here every day this week. We'll be here Thursday and Friday. We'll be here live. Monday, we'll be here live. If anything does change, we will update you. But as of now, tentatively, we will be live here all week, including Monday. If something changes, we will let you know. Then I think we're about almost 3 hours and 10 minutes into this podcast. Maybe one day we'll go on a complete marathon and see how long we can go. If anybody's willing to listen and stay here all day, because these topics can go on and on. Paul, I got to tell you, man, thank you so much for always coming on this podcast. You're a great friend to us. I really appreciate everything you do for us. And I will say I really support the cops that were on that scene. Clearly, the amount of cops that you could see, clearly it was something more indicative than just an actual car stop. I do believe that a crime was actually committed, and something of a serious crime. I would put my money, probably a robbery or something like that, depending on, because of how many cops that were there, or there was some other crime committed and they were just so extremely combative. But before we close out, let's talk about that briefly, John, about managers. NYPD conduct case should be closed. Because I would tell you this, as the most complained cop, some of my allegations, of course, included abuse of authority, which I believe is a catch-all for the Civilian Complaint Review Board. And I had far less allegations when it came to abuse of authority. I could say what I mean by allegations in comparison to manager's abuse of authority was. I had abuse of authority for, conducted a car stop, and I advised someone that if they didn't do A, B, and C, that they would be arrested. And I was actually substantiated as a complaint of abuse of authority. And I think that's far less than what's going on with Madry. I don't think that's abuse of authority, but I was substantiated and found guilty.
So, Paul, I don't know if you're aware of this case, but Madry's buddy gets locked up for menacing 3 teens who were breaking the cameras outside of his business. So he pulls a firearm on them. I don't believe he should have even been arrested. So I'm going to get into that right off the bat. But you know, they call 911. They say this guy chases with a gun, blah, 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 blah. Cop on scene. Sergeant gets there. He gets video of the guy pulling out the gun, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Locks the guy up. Marjorie comes in. Something I wouldn't do as a 3-star chief. But again, laws and rules only apply to some people. I mean, I think it's a valid arrest at that point because he does have it. I think it's a dumb arrest. I don't think it should have actually ever been made. But however, it is a valid arrest. So what Marjorie does is he shows up at the precinct and he says, cut him loose and cut him out and drop all the charges. You know, he basically circumvents the criminal justice system for friends of Eric Adams and friends of Jeffrey Marjorie. So while I think that the arrest is bullshit, I think it's absolutely wrong what Marjorie did. So he was supposed to be disciplined over this. You saw that Keechon Sewell was getting ready to discipline him when all of a sudden she stepped down. They said they wasn't going to go to the disciplinary process. CCRB had kept a portion of the case. When CCRB administrative trial was supposed to happen, the NYPD said, you actually don't have jurisdiction on this case, and they removed it from the CCRB. This is something that has never happened in the history of the NYPD, right? So they removed CCRB's ability to even investigate the case. Then Caban says, case is closed. He did nothing wrong. So people are calling for transparency. And Daily News put out an article yesterday. Marjorie's NYPD conduct case shouldn't be closed. As former NYPD, this is written from a former Deputy Commissioner of Trials, by the way. Having collectively 25 years experience in handling disciplinary cases, we believe Police Commissioner Edward Caban's dismissal of the disciplinary charge against Chief of Department Jeffrey Marjorie, presently the NYPD's highest-ranking 4-star member of the police, on technical procedural grounds, should not be an end to this matter. The charge filed with the CCRB against Marjorie alleged on or about November 24, 2021, at approximately 2300 hours while assigned to the Community Affairs Borough and on duty, abused his authority as a member of the New York City Police Department, and that he improperly interfered with an arrest. Now, I think that the allegation is legitimate, right? And he says, the deputy, I'll just go on to the end of it. The Deputy Commissioner of Trials recommendation, since the case was dismissed based upon the resolution of a procedurally nuanced question, we urge the police commissioner, empowered by the charter as the department's final authority concerning all disciplinaries, to determine on the merits whether Marjorie's improperly interfered with an arrest authorized by a sergeant. He's basically saying we need an investigation. There was no investigation. The Deputy Commissioner of Trials recommendation does not preclude a disciplinary trial from ongoing on the forward of merits. Instead, notwithstanding the procedural dismissal, we believe the NYPD's Department or Advocate Office is not prohibited from prosecuting this disciplinary matter at this time. The dismissal of this case without substantive explanation will leave the impression that favoritism is sanctioned by the department and that ranking officers are immune to discipline, which they are. To be clear, we are not prejudging the facts of this case. If Marjorie's conduct was appropriate, then the public needs to know why, and it will provide members of the service with needed guidance for future conduct. A decision on the merits of transparency in this matter is obvious and overwhelming importance. Chris served from 1980 to 1982, Koschitz from 1988 to 2022, Carapin from 2006 to 2014 as NYPD Deputy Commissioner of Trials. What do you guys think about this case?
Well, again, it goes back to the NYPD. Nepotism is king. When it comes to the NYPD, it's great to be in the great club. You're either in the club or you're not. But what happened to the if I'm right, what happened to exonerate? Let the case play out. And if he's exonerated, and what does exonerated mean? It means that he did these actions and those actions were appropriate. But they couldn't come up with exonerated because his actions were not appropriate. He did abuse his authority. And I argued it. It's interesting. Lou Turco, if you're listening right now, all right, I've always been a gentleman with you, but I got a bone to pick with you. Back then, I told you, I said, look at these cases I've been substantiated for. Abuse of authority, it's a catch-all. It sounds terrible. It sounds like I abused my authority as a public figure, of being a police officer. And yet, all I did was advise warnings to people and say, listen, if you don't take these appropriate steps, you are subject to arrest, warning them of the situation that they're putting themselves in. And that was found guilty of abuse of authority, and they said they couldn't do anything about it. Apparently, that was wrong. Apparently, that was wrong again. So I'm trying to give advice to the union that they never took before. So clearly, it's good for some and just not for others. Apparently, I was not in the big club. I was not in the circle of nepotism. I was the most complained cop. If I was Chief Marjorie, I could have 9 lives. He has far more discipline than I've ever had in my career. Because actually, in my career, I've had 0 discipline. The only discipline I had was from the Civilian Complaint Review Board, nothing internally from the NYPD. And yet, I was unable to make captain, and Jeffrey Madry made to chief of department. At the same time, he's also got his law degree while studying on job time within the New York City Police Department. Another travesty.
Well, yeah, nepotism. I mean, that was on when I was on the job back, 30 something years ago. I think a lot of it has to do with the actual arrest. John, do you think the arrest was bullshit? I don't know, but just reading here, it looks like they obtained the surveillance footage, and then they collared the guy. So I would assume that they looked at the footage, they saw that the guy did pull the gun on these kids, and it seems to be a valid arrest. I wouldn't have wanted to make that arrest either. And I think on a podcast a while ago, John, you said that you felt bad for the sergeant for being put in that situation. I wouldn't want to be in that situation either, especially he's dropping names and he's a retired cop. But if they reviewed footage, it seems like they had no choice. So that makes it even worse, because now Madry's going to the command and asking them to shit can something. I've had maybe 1 or 2 arrests voided. Sometimes, we would write on the online, additional information was produced, which revealed that the suspect did not commit the crime. Whether it's a witness or whatever it is, sometimes you do have to void an arrest. It seems just from these small paragraphs that it was a legitimate arrest. And what Madry did is even more egregious. But the nepotism has always been there, and I think it will always stay. Eric, I'm still shocked with the shit that you had to put up with from CCRB. I said it a million times. CCRB was not big when I was on the job, and it really does handcuff people and prevents them from moving forward.
Thank you for recognizing that, Paul. It's a whole nother animal now. Honestly, the CCRB has the ability, if you're a target for their overzealous campaign, have the ability to really tear down your career and have you terminated because of the disciplinary matrix. So it's been completely weaponized.
But not Jeffrey Madry, though.
But not for Jeffrey Madry.
Jeffrey Madry, though.
Let me ask you this, Paul. This is the part I'm curious about. Even in your time, do you think that Madry has any business showing up to a precinct at his level? Should he even be aware of this arrest? Should he even be aware, notified? Should he have anything to do with it?
No, of course not. I will tell you this, though. I knew chiefs that would, if a cop got assaulted and they wanted to decline, if they declined to prosecute, the chief would get dressed up in his full uniform and go to court to speak to the ADA or go to the precinct or wherever the cop was, especially if a cop was hurt, and advocate on the cop's behalf. And the reasoning is, I could tell them I'm a chief, but when I show up in the uniform, it will maybe persuade this weak ADA who refuses to prosecute this thug for injuring one of our cops. Excuse me. It will help make sure that they do prosecute, especially when a cop is injured. So that in that situation, they put on the uniform and they go, but it's to help cops. It's not to get somebody out of an arrest just because you're friendly with them. If it were you, me, John, it would be, it'd be in a world of shit right now. But I'm not surprised. I mean, the guy's top, and Sewell wanted to discipline him, right? And yep. I wonder if that's one of the issues that she and Adams fought about. Go ahead.
So Ron Layson says, not sure if IMB investigated the case, then it should have a disposition of exonerated, etc. This case was dropped because of a jurisdictional issue. I agree that this case is not under the jurisdiction of CCRB. I wholeheartedly disagree with you, Ron. If this case is not under the jurisdiction of CCRB, that means that no cop ever in the NYPD should have ever been charged with abuse of authority. Abuse of authority is an arbitrary and capricious allegation that's made consistently, and we've never the NYPD has never argued the merits of what is abuse of authority and what isn't. This is the first time this is completely being done out of nepotism. And I'm saying right now, this is not showing people, it's not giving people the illusion that the upper echelon is held unaccountable. It's showing people exactly that they are completely held unaccountable to the same rules that they apply to the rank and file. Abuse of authority is a catch-all. It's a catch-all, and 100% the CCRB should have been allowed to go through with their investigation. If it wasn't a big deal, are we going to argue the merits of any of the abusive authorities for Eric Dim's case or any of the other people? We're absolutely not. Before we get final thoughts for everybody, and I want to get your thoughts, I just want the importance of everything we're talking about here, because policing and politics are so heavily connected that people get it confused sometimes. They're like, why are you guys talking about politics? Because politics affects everything. We need to get common sense people in there, like our friend Tom Sullivan, who's running for state senate and Assembly District 23. So when we come back, Eric, I just want to get your thoughts. But do us a favor, get out there and vote for Tom Sullivan. If you do not live in Assembly District 23 in Queens, please let the people that you do know Tom Sullivan is the proper choice. Tom Sullivan is the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for New York State Assembly District 23. Tom is a financial professional who served simultaneously in the United States Army Reserve for 30 years and has now retired. His district covers Ozone Park, Lindenwold, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and the Rockaway Peninsula.
Come November, I would empower our law enforcement agencies to go out there and do their job and not put them or their families or their pensions at risk for doing their jobs. We need drastic change in Albany so that we have a say in this matter, and they realize people of New York State will hold them accountable.
The Sullivan family has a legacy of service. Tom served for 30 years protecting and defending the rights of others. Come this November, he has earned your support. This advertisement's paid for by the Friends of Tom Sullivan. So, Eric, what do you think? What do you think about Ron's statement?
First of all, shout out to Tom Sullivan. Great man, patriot, served in the military, served the community. Great guy. I think that Ron Layson is right. It should be investigated by the IAB. However, since it's not, and typically they're investigated by the Civilian Complaint Review Board, just in my case, so should his case. So it's either one, or it's either none of them or all of them. I was actually substantiated for abuse of authority for the car stops that I just mentioned. I was also substantiated for abuse of authority for searching an apartment based off a search warrant. That was administered by a judge. So this is my point. And the Civilian Complaint Review Board said I abused my authority because we left the place a mess. That's what you do when you search an apartment based off a search warrant when you're looking for a little gun this big. Yeah, we turned the place upside down, and I was found abuse of authority. So should that fall under the purview of Civilian Complaint Review Board? Absolutely not. Should the CCRB have the right to substantiate Eric Dim for a car stop as abuse of authority? I mean, to me, abuse of authority sounds terrible. When the public looks at it like, wow, Eric Dim abused his authority. He abused the weight of that shield. And that's not really what happened. I've been saying that for years. I argue with Lou Turco numerous times that this is not in the purview of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. You need to argue this. I should be permitted to give someone a warning on a car stop if that's going to de-escalate a situation to get them in handcuffs. And I was told they couldn't do anything. But again, they're wrong. So I agree with you, John. Every case should fall under CCRB. Again, just as this one. But what do, John? They change the game at any point. Just as they did with the vaccine mandate, they change the game, and they change the game now. And that's what they do. They change the game when they have to, when it's necessary and convenient for them. Absolutely, Madry should have faced the Civilian Complaint Review Board. I believe he had no business being there. He should have faced the Civilian Complaint Review Board and the Internal Affairs Bureau. He completely abused his authority. Now, for some, the cops are probably saying, oh, dude, that's pretty cool, right? He stood up for that guy. I guess you could say, you know what's cool? He stood up for that guy. But he's still, as a professional and in his position, he should have never got involved in that. That was not his position.
Well, again, also, if the arrest was valid, he should be jammed up, right? Interfering like that, using your rank, that by definition is abuse of authority. We know that Mayor Adams likes to tout how he abused white cops. When I was a sergeant, lieutenant, captain, every day I kick those crackers' ass, or whatever his statement was. And I find that shameful. Using your authority, using your rank to abuse your authority is different than talking to someone on a car stop. Eric, are you saying that you would tell someone, listen, if you don't comply, I'm going to have to arrest you? They call that abuse of authority?
No, that's
Absolutely.
a threat of arrest. That's a threat of arrest.
I got threat of arrest, and it fell under abuse of authority. That was the charge. You're 100% right, Judge. Threat of arrest.
So they don't want you to warn them? They want you to just put cuffs on them?
Even when you're required to do so by law.
Yes.
Listen, one of the best things a cop has is, we talk about the ability to de-escalate, right? What you say, what comes out of your mouth, and how you approach certain jobs and certain situations can dictate how the rest of your night goes. It can get you shot. It can get a perp hurt. It could get you sued, or you can end the night peacefully.
I lost 10 vacation days. 10 vacation.
For what?
I was on I conducted a car stop, and I advised the operator that they were going to be arrested if they didn't produce their driver's license. So I had an operator of a car refuse to produce their license. Two of my police officers. I just want to show you also how the disciplinary matrix was weaponized and how they target people. So 2 police officers that were actually on my teams were conducting a car stop. I happened to be nearby, and this person actually was being investigated, part of a gang that was involved in several shootings. They could not get the operator to roll down the window, and they could not get the driver's license and registration. Couldn't get any information. So they summoned me over. I said, obviously, after about 10 minutes on the body camera of negotiating and trying to get this person to roll down the window, I advised them if they did not roll down the window and produce their driver's license and registration and comply, they will be subject to arrest. And I was found threatened to arrest, abuse of authority, 10 vacation days. The 2 police officers, they got ACDs. Myself and another lieutenant responded. The other lieutenant got a BCD, and I got charges. And all of us were involved in the same incident. And I got charges because the disciplinary matrix, according to disciplinary matrix, I had more CCRBs. I got more aggravating factors. So I received charges, and I lost 10 vacation days.
Listen, I believe that there has to be a reason for discipline, and you have to correct someone's behavior, right? If somebody's doing something wrong. I would love to know, have they ever told you how you were supposed to handle that, other than saying, listen, I'm going to have to arrest you? How can I don't know, dude. It just sounds crazy. Because what's the proper way? What's the proper way? How do you handle that?
Great question. I challenged the Civilian Complaint Review Board, and they would never give me a response. All they told me was that those actions were threatened to arrest and never could give me a solution. Great question.
So this is like the guy on the beach where he says, fuck you, I'm walking away. I guess you just got to let everyone go, right? If we talked about before how there was years ago in the 80s and 90s, there was a little bit of fear from police. People feared the police, and it prevented stuff from escalating, right? Now it's the tables have turned. Police fear the public and upper management and the media. And this is the result we have. We have cops afraid to do their job. That's why I agree with you. The cops in Staten Island, it was good to see them not run away like cowards. But I hope they don't get jammed up.
They are
I really do.
They are going to get jammed up. Maybe not after we did the podcast and highlighted it, but if it wasn't for the media attention and then us calling out that they're actually doing their job wouldn't say one word. They wouldn't argue about what's an abuse of authority and what's under the purview of CCRB. And Ron, I totally disagree with you. It's not an internal issue. There was a complainant there who asked to have that individual arrested. The complainant's wishes were totally disregarded. If it was a valid arrest, the CCRB is valid. It does fall under the purview of the CCRB. Now, the fact that he interfered with an arrest and circumvented the criminal justice system, that's not under the CCRB's purview, and that also should be investigated by IAB, who we've labeled out on this podcast is completely incapable of handling complaints against the upper echelon of the NYPD. And for those civilian members that fall under the purview of DOI, they also incapable, because they still fall under the illustrious Mayor Eric Adams, that they are also incapable of finding any penalties against the upper echelon of the NYPD, whether it becomes civilian. So I think right now at this point, anyone who's saying that cops aren't under any scrutiny, they're right when as it relates to the upper echelon of the NYPD and those that are closest to the king. But when you talk about the rank and file, it is the most heavily scrutinized job in the world, what you see from Eric's statements. Paul, we're going to start to wrap this up. So can we get your final thoughts? And can you just tell everybody where we could find you?
Sure. I just want to go back to the thing you put up before, sue NYPD. I think it's important for the public to realize how easily they give out this money. We had someone who got $3,000. Obviously they settled because they said that when they were handcuffed, the handcuffs restricted their mobility, which is why we put handcuffs on people so you can't hurt us. But they got $3,000 for that. In an upcoming podcast on my channel, I'm going to talk about the New York City Council. When I was doing this research, I just saw that same city, New York City, that's giving out money to everyone, gave $17 million because of the solitary confinement in Rikers Island. So they gave $17 million to prisoners who were put in the box. They also settled and gave $28 million for people who insisted on wearing the hijab for the driver's license photos. They were told to take it off just so we could take their picture. And New York City said, no, that was egregious. And they gave out $28 million for that. So the city loves to give money out and loves to second guess police just because, you've had a case DP'd and now they're going to come after you and sue you. People need to realize the city always settles, even with George Floyd, even with, I believe, Eric Gardner. They just want to give the money out. In some cases, they do it before the cop or during the cop's trial to taint the jury. Because then you must think, just like you're looking at this and saying, oh, wow, this cop abused his authority, or this live TV, that was a bug. Just because this cop's case was DP'd, he must have done something wrong. It's the same thing. Oh, well, the city gave out $6 million on this unlawful death, and now you're going to trial. The jurors are thinking, well, obviously the cop was guilty. The cop did something wrong. So I think it's important to realize they give money out for everything.
Not everything.
I want to thank you guys. Go ahead. Sorry.
Not everything. Not when they actually sexually harass women or they illegally fire people.
That's because it's who you know.
Yeah, not everything. Paul, could you just do me a favor? Could you add into that video the few $100 million that they paid out to the people who were taking the teacher's exam, the principal's exam, because they didn't know they had to be able to read to become a teacher in New York City? And I think they paid out I think it was $200 million. So if you could add that in, I think that would be great. But you didn't tell us where we could find you, bro.
All right, so you could just put my name in, Paul Manicone. The handle is @JustRightPD, but the show is actually Just Right with Paul Manicone. You can find me on YouTube, which is where I spend most of my time making videos. Also Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Paul, I gotta say, I love you, brother. Honestly, we found Paul, and I guess he found us on social media. And that's how we convened and connected. And it's been an amazing thing being in retirement and meeting the people that we have met through this podcast and through social media. I never utilized social media. I wasn't a social media guy. I never used it. I really avoided it. But I can say, Paul, it's been nothing but a pleasure to meet you. I consider you family. Paul's always just a kind heart, a good person, strong character at the same time. It would have been a pleasure to have worked with you back then. I love that you come on the podcast with us and give us your insights. Some stuff we agree, some stuff we disagree, but that's the beauty of it, is bringing our commonalities, our differences together. I want to thank our friends. Absolutely, Paul. Really, I mean it. And I say it from the bottom of my heart. I want to thank our friends and listeners on this podcast for sticking with us for over 3 hours, 3.5 hours. It feels like 5 minutes to me. Be getting out of here, going to train soon. Ron, thank you so much for agreeing. Thank you so much for your comments. Chris Arnold, Corn Pop, this Nighthawk, Imp Franco, Frankie, who else here? Marlon. I mean, we got so many people that hung in with us. Hassan comes on early. Thank you so much. If there's anyone I missed, I apologize. There's so many comments. So with that being said, staying with us. Listen, we'll be here tomorrow, 8:05 live Eastern Time, Pacific Time, 5:05 to 2:65 live on US Finest Unfiltered Podcast. I love you too, Brother John. Is there anything you want to close out before we get out of here? You cracker. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, appreciate everybody. We had almost 500 people in here today. I'm sure the thousands that'll listen later. We really appreciate all your support. To the haters, we appreciate you guys too. It actually adds fuel to the fire. So for those of you that are expecting us to fail or think that we're going to back down for your nonsensical calls of racism, you're completely out of your mind. Like I said, John Shell, Kaz Daughtry, we're your best friends. You just don't know it yet. When you look back in years to come, you're going to say, wow, those guys helped me out a lot. So appreciate everybody. Listen, links for everything will be in the thing. If you want to buy a Finest Unfiltered coffee mug where we have the party department also logo on the back, definitely reach out, get that coming out from Printify, and we'll be back at you tomorrow, 8:05 live. And just to close out, I'm going to play the illustrious mayor of New York City, Eric, not a racist, Adams.
Every day the police department, I kick those crackers out. Every day the police department, I kick those crackers out. Every day the police department, I kick those crackers out. Every day the police department.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community, but who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.